I'm going to assume I am live. I'm not seeing myself pop up on the stream, but I'll take my... There you go. Hi, everybody. I am SuperViperT302. This is going to be Super Mario Galaxy 2 Any%. This game has not been shown on GSA since February, I believe, of 2019. And quite a lot has changed within the past year and a half, so I'm really excited to finally show off how far the community has gone with this game. And I'm really happy to finally get a chance to show this in a true marathon setting on GSA. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. So if you've never watched a Super Mario Galaxy speedrun before, the basic premise of how to beat these games is very similar to SM64, in that you need to collect a certain number of stars in order to progress in the game. In this game, Any% requires a bare minimum of 71 stars. You need 70 in order to unlock the final Bowser level, which is Bowser's Galaxy Generator, and you also need 1 star from Bowser's Galaxy Generator to actually trigger the Ant Cinema. So in essence, this is a 71 star run. And the game cannot be beaten any faster than that, which is most of the reason why this run takes so long, but I think you should still find it entertaining. So this is the Master Luma. He is going to go into Mario's hat now and give us the ability to spin, and spinning is kind of the core mechanic of the Galaxy games, because it basically lets you do everything. You basically cannot beat the game without it, and it's motion control based, as you would expect, because this is a Wii game. Let's see if I can get to this. Alright. So in this game, when you land on slopes with a high amount of speed, you can actually jump on them within the first few frames, and you can maintain that momentum during the jump, which is going to be really useful to preserve momentum in a few places. Unlike Galaxy 1, however, you cannot actually climb up slopes in this game, but one thing I'm going to bring up now that is not necessarily going to be relevant for now, but it will be relevant later in the run, is that a slope's slipperiness, and this is something we learned recently, is actually determined by how close it is to the camera. So if a slope is really far away from the camera, then it's actually not slippery and Mario can walk on it as if it were a normal surface. And this is going to come into play for one of the skips that I'm going to be doing about 2 hours or so into the run. But just keep that in mind for now. But unfortunately, those are the only 2 useful slope exploits in the run, and you hardly see any of them in this run. Okay, so coming up is a potential for a text skip. I'm not really going to be going for it, but I'm just going to kind of map through these text boxes and see what happens. So in this set of 4 text boxes right here, if you waste a few frames on these first 2, I'm not going to get it. If you waste a few frames on those first 2 and then get the third one frame perfect, you can actually skip the 4th one. But it requires waiting a specific number of frames, and it also requires a frame perfect input. This game runs at 60 FPS, so frame perfect inputs in this game are pretty difficult, to say the least. So now we're heading off into the first mission of the run. This is going to be Sky Station's first mission, and it's a very action-packed star right out of the gate. So I'm going to do this type of jump. You're going to be seeing me do a lot, where I just wall jump and spin backwards onto a wall like that. Oh, and right here I'm going to stand still after this Luma finishes talking to me, so that I can enter that launch star a little bit earlier, because that ends the cutscene earlier. So the main benefit of the spin is that you can do a really high jump and then spin to gain additional height, and you can also wall jump off of a wall and then spin backwards to help yourself climb up a wall like I'm about to do here. And we got another cool trick coming up here. So what I just did there is referred to as Luma bounce. You basically do a homing ground pound off that Luma in order to skip the launch star that it gives you. It saves approximately 1 second, and if you fail it, you die. But it's not terribly difficult, and it's really cool to show off, so it's worth it. And this is the first star in the run. Also right there, you just saw me get what's known as a Comet Medal. I'll go into what those do later, but for now, just know that there are 1 of those in every galaxy, and I'm going to be wanting collecting them whenever I can. Also, backwards momentum is superior to forwards momentum in this game, so you can do cool stuff like that. Right. So this is the first boss of the run. This is Peewee Piranha. You're intended to spin out its shell a couple of times in order to break it, but you can actually just do this instead. You can just ground pound it once and that shatters the whole thing. And Peewee is pretty difficult to hit on that first hit, at least right away. This second is actually a lot easier. Peewee tries to run away a lot less quickly on the second hit. On the first hit, you'll notice I had to stun him with some star bits in order to catch up to him in time. And there we go, that's the first star out of 71. Now, I do want to mention this because I know a lot of you are probably used to the super fast-paced games like SM64. This game does have a lot of downtime. There's usually about 30 to 60 seconds between each star of just dialogue and sometimes cutscenes. And this is more prominent in the first part of the game because, you know, you got to get all the early game exposition out of the way. So one thing I should talk about quickly is text. So you can scroll through text quickly in this game by holding the A button, which is what I'm doing here. Text actually scrolls a lot quicker in this game than it does in Galaxy 1, but it scrolls slightly faster if you're using the Japanese version. And lately, world record contention has been done using the Virtual Console on the Wii U with the Japanese version. We found a way to access that on any Wii U, but I do not own a Wii U at the moment, so I'm just playing on English disc. The difference is about 20 seconds or so. It's not a huge deal for any percent. This is a 3-hour run, so it makes a difference, but not too much of one. And for the sake of this run, it's not going to matter too much. Okay. So this is Starship Mario. This is sort of the hub world of the game, and pretty much anytime I'm here, I'm going to want to make my way over to this button in order to get to the world map, which is how I'm going to get from galaxy to galaxy. And right there, I held down after the text boxes in order to make Mario face the camera, because if he's facing the camera when the text boxes are done, then I want to backflip to that button. Otherwise, if he's not facing the camera, then I'll actually turn him around instead. And there are some instances where lava will bring me to other areas of the starship. So this is the world map. This is how we're going to access galaxies and therefore get stars. And we have a couple choices to make here. I'm actually going to go back to Sky Station and get its second main mission. And we refer to those as Sky Station 1 and 2, respectively. Alright. So, at the very start of Sky Station 2 here is a very tricky chomp cycle I'm going to want to catch here in order to hit the chomp with this plant. And then afterwards you're going to see some kind of awkward movement. And I'll kind of explain that here in a minute, but first let's see if I can get this. This is pretty tight. Right, I could have made it a little bit faster, but I still made the cycle, so we're good. So this movement's going to look kind of weird, and that's actually due to the curvature of this planet's gravity field, so I'm going to do a short little jump there, and as you notice, Mario traveled a greater distance in a shorter period of time. And so, if I do weird movement like that, it's to optimize Mario's movement due to the gravity. Now, on this planet, I'm going to want to have decent movement here, because these elevators are on cycles, and if I don't make any major time losses, then I can actually have pretty fast movement through here. Alright, this is looking pretty good. Yeah. So right there, I was able to not grab that 1-up. When you grab your first 1-up in this game, you get a little text box. So skipping it there, in theory, does save time, and it would, in theory, save time if you avoided every 1-up. But it's pretty much unlikely that that's ever going to happen, and I'm pretty much, with the movement I do in some sections, I'm basically guaranteed to grab at least a couple of 1-ups throughout the run, so skipping the text box there doesn't really mean much. The rest of this star is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm actually going to talk about one major movement optimization you probably don't even know about. So right there, you probably just saw the camera kind of twitch, and you also maybe heard a little bit of a click. So what I did, and what I'm going to be doing almost every time I land from a launch star, is going into first-person mode and then exiting out of it immediately. And what this does is it cancels the landing animation that normally takes place when Mario lands from a launch star. Oh boy, I'm actually going to backflip over the spawn site build for safety. Okay, I didn't want to die there. So that landing cancel that I just mentioned saves about 1 second each time you do it, but you take a lot of launch stars in this game, so that definitely adds up over the course of the entire run, and saves probably multiple minutes, in fact. There is actually a second variant of landing cancels that you'll only see me go for at the start of missions. You can actually jump out of any landing animation by jumping within a specific frame window. It's usually 1 to 2 frames depending on the level. because there are certain areas where you actually can't go into first-person mode, and the fly-in cutscene is actually one of those. So, in certain stages where it could be beneficial, you'll see me, you might hear me mashing the A button, and that's just so I can get that frame-perfect jump. But again, it's frame-perfect in 60 FPS, so I probably won't get it too often, and even if I do get it, it doesn't usually save that much time, but you'll probably see it a couple times with the amount of times I'll go for it. Right here is the first example. Alright, I didn't get it. So this is Yoshi Star Galaxy, and if you don't know anything about Super Mario Galaxy 2 glitches, then you're in for a treat. Because Yoshi is the most broken thing in this game. With Yoshi, there is a very peculiar glitch you can do with him that I'll explain in a little bit. And right now I'm going to go for a skip that's pretty tricky to execute and has a very high risk factor to it, because it can net you time loss if you fail it. So let's try this here. Alright. So that skip saves about 20 seconds, you lose about 40 if you fail it. So I'm really glad I got that first try. So what I just did there is a glitch that is famously known as infinite fluttering. So normally when Yoshi does a flutter in this game, he has a short little cooldown that has to take place before he can start fluttering again. And this normally prevents you from chaining flutters in succession. But if you crouch mid-flutter, that actually cancels both the flutter and the cooldown, and immediately lets you begin fluttering again. So as you can see, I can use it to, as you saw earlier, I can use it to gain incredible amounts of distance and speed in a short period of time, and I can also use it to gain height here. Now, the typical angles you're going to want to be seeing me hold for most infinite flyers like that is slightly sideways and also in the direction of Yoshi's back, because that's what will usually get me the most speed. However, once you're in the air for about 10 seconds, you actually lose basically all of that momentum, and are reduced to a very slow crawl to the front or side from there on out. So, there are certain ways you can get around that, such as for that flutter, I actually dismounted off of Yoshi. Because when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all of your momentum going into the dismount. So in Yoshi Star 1, I used Infinite Fluttering to skip one planet and save about 20 seconds. In Yoshi Star 2, I'm going to be using Infinite Fluttering to basically skip the entire level. And this skip saves close to a minute. This is probably one of the biggest Infinite Flutter skips in the run. I would say it's slightly easier than the previous one. There is an awkward camera change midway through that can sometimes mess you up, and tends to mess a lot of players up, but we should be okay. And yeah, Infinite Fluttering is basically going to be something I do almost every time I get on Yoshi, because it allows for such great skips, and even if it doesn't, it's just a really good way to move fast. There's a lot of nuances to Infinite Fluttering that I haven't yet gotten into, and so I'll definitely make sure I get into those as we go through the run. So this is Giga Kichu. This is the first pointer-based boss. You basically just eat Spinies with Yoshi and then shoot them back at him, which means you do have to have a cooperative sensor bar. So if you don't, then this boss and several other sections in this game are a massive pain. Here I'm going to try a little bit of a strat, hopefully I get this. Alright, so I tongued both of those Spinies once before I ate the first one, and what that actually did was set it up to where I could get a Spiny in Yoshi's mouth for this phase. So this way I could hit Giga Kichu without having to wait for him to throw out any Spinies, and that actually saves a good deal of time. And there we go. So you'll notice that throughout most of the early portion of this run, my routing choices are going to be somewhat limited, but it will branch out as I go through the run, so no need to worry. Also, you just noticed that I had a star bit in reserve when I finished Yoshi Star 2, and you saw that text box come up. I want to minimize as many of those text boxes as possible, because obviously it wastes time to get that text box for some stars. Some stars it doesn't lose time, but for most stars it does. So I'm usually not going to be picking up any star bits, and I'm also going to try to do the same thing with coins, but coins are harder because you can't just spit them out unless you die. And you're probably wondering if I'm not going to be collecting any star bits, where I'm going to get them all from. Well, just you wait. Right, so this level is where we are introduced to the first of Mario's actual power-ups in this game, the spin drill, but we don't need it for most of this stage, because Nintendo kind of forgot you could jump. Alright. I do have to use it on this planet, so here I'm going to do another homing ground pound to gain some momentum off this drill. Homing ground pound is basically this. It's a spin followed immediately by a ground pound, which will home in onto the nearest item, enemy, or NPC. And as you can see, you gain quite a bit of momentum when you bounce off of an enemy like that. And right here, I'm going to do a little bit of a skip. I'm going to jump into the corner of this pillar, like that, and it kind of clips me through into it like that, which saves a few seconds of walking. I'm going to turn the camera here a few times to manipulate some cycles. And this planet is kind of an auto-scroller, because you have to wait for the Luma here at the end. So coming up is a pretty hilarious skip here. When I land on this Starshroom planet, I'm supposed to have a quick conversation with Captain Toad, but you can actually skip it by doing this. You just go into first-person mode as soon as you land, and then you shoot him in the face with starbits. It saves a few seconds, and also is pretty hilarious because you're just abusing Captain Toad. Alright, so this is Dig-a-Leg. This boss is one of the first major instances of RNG in the run. It's, for the sake of a marathon, it's not going to make too much of a time difference if I get good or bad RNG, but in attempts it can be pretty bad. So I'm going to be pressing up against Dig-a-Leg here. I actually want him to jump on top of me. Okay, not like that. If he jumps on top of me there, then what he would do is he would immediately jump to the other side of the battlefield and immediately become vulnerable without me having to wait for him to stop. Which would obviously be a little bit faster. I also want to try to keep those yellow enemies alive if possible, because then he won't try to spawn out anymore before I'm getting hit. Okay, so that's good RNG. So he's just going to land here. And he's only going to spawn one enemy here. That was an okay-ish Dig-a-Leg. I would say that's around average. And I don't want to walk all the way over to the star, so I can just drill to it. And my hitbox just kind of pops me up into the star like that. So this star is the first of many instances in this run where Lubba, who's that big, fat, purple idiot that rambled his mouth to me earlier in the game, he's going to bring me down to the bottom of the starship. This is going to happen several times throughout the run whenever Lubba wants to introduce any new NPCs to us. And for the most part, these NPCs do basically nothing to help me beat the game. So my goal whenever I'm on the starship is just to get to the button as soon as quickly. So once he finishes flapping his gums, I'm just going to kind of jump away from him. And this movement that I'm going to do to the button is actually relatively new. And it saves barely any time, but it looks pretty cool. I messed it up. I jumped a little too close to the wall there. Okay, so this is Right Side Down Galaxy, and it's a galaxy that's pretty unique because you get to experience what it's like to change gravity fields sort of on the fly. Except there's a lot of convenient skips in this level that are mostly just due to Nintendo placing objects in really convenient locations. And you'll see what I mean very early on. There's like 2 of these back to back. So first there's this really cool backflip I can do that should get me all the way down to this flower here. There we go. So I'm supposed to hit this lever here, if I don't get hit by that enemy. This lever actually changes the... please don't do this to me, game. Okay. This lever actually changes the direction of gravity, but there's a item block that's conveniently placed right here that allows me to get all the way down to this section of the level. was a little sloppy, but at least I didn't die. And I'm actually supposed to hit another gravity lever here, but again, these elevators are... Oh, would you look at that? It's placed right next to where I need to be. Alright. So coming up here is a pretty risky section here. I'm going to grab the fire flower here and attempt to get through these boxes. I'm going to try skipping, breaking some of them, and this is actually kind of risky to go for. Alright, got the first one. That one's the harder of the two. This one's pretty simple. You can just long jump underneath it like that. So what makes those box skips really difficult is that, or they're not necessarily difficult, but they're really risky because if you get crushed in this game, regardless of how much health you have, it's automatic. You're just automatically dead. So you gotta make sure you don't get crushed there. And yeah, that going onto the side there just kind of skips the rest of that stage. You're actually supposed to be able to go out there, and the reason why we know that is because there's one-ups in the four corners. It's a kind of cool Easter egg. And then you have to do that awkward shift back into the 2D gravity sector, but still saves a good amount of time. Alright. So, I'm actually going to be re-entering right side down. It might not look like there's any stars I can still do there. Well, you probably noticed that star that has a question mark over it. There's no new mission for me to unlock, and you're going to see the question mark again there. There's actually a secret star in this level, and I'm going to be re-entering for that. It's basically hidden within the mission. And since I've already seen the level intro cutscenes, I was able to skip them there. So once again here, I'm supposed to hit a gravity lever to get into this pipe. I'm just going to jump as soon as I land from this flower, and just wall jump into it. Like that. So this pipe takes me to a box-breaking minigame that is reminiscent of the trash minigames from the first Galaxy game. These are pretty difficult to do casually because you have a time limit and it's pretty strict. But in speedrunning, it's hard because you have to optimize your fireball throws and try not to miss any shots. This one is especially weird. You have a lot of weird positions you have to throw these at. That was a really bad toss there. Alright, 11's not too bad. The best you can get on that minigame is 14, and I've gotten 13 before, that's my best, so 11 isn't horrible, but I did miss a few shots. And that's it for right side down. So now that I have 7 stars, Luma is going to introduce a very important character to us. I'm not going to say what he does quite yet. If you pay close attention to the dialogue, you might be able to figure it out, but just know that this Toad that he's about to introduce is going to come into play, and he's going to be very important to our progress in this run in about 18 minutes from now, give or take. So just keep that green Toad in mind. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Fluffy Block Galaxy, where we have a fan-favorite power-up here in the form of the Cloud Flower. So I have access to 2 stars here. The first one I'm going to be doing is the Secret Star, where I'm going to be collecting 100 coins to feed them to a Hungry Luma. If that sounds like a lot, it is, especially because this is the first Hungry Luma in the game, and that's the most coins that it ever takes to feed one. But the cool thing about this star is that there's like 2 locations where you can very easily get huge amounts of coins. Kind of an intended route for the star if you must. So I'm going to long jump into this Cloud Flower here because Mario turns around to face the camera during that text box, and I can get some backwards momentum from that. Right. I have to be really careful here to not let the timers on any of these coin sets expire, otherwise I pretty much won't be able to get the 100 coin star. So each of those 3 clouds you see following behind me, those are special platforms I can make by spinning, and they allow me to cross distances that Mario by himself could not otherwise cross. Some intended, some unintended. And there's a lot of really interesting tech with the Cloud Flower that makes it super broken and also makes it super good for speedruns. And you get to see a lot of it pretty much every single time I use the Cloud Flower. For one, the Cloud Flower just makes you incredibly floaty in general, so you last a lot longer in midair, and I guess your jumps kind of go higher. But that can be kind of useful. So I'm going to feed these 100 coins to these Hungry Luma, and because Nintendo logic, it's just going to transform it into an entire planet. And this planet also has its own star, so I'm going to go there. And this climb really showcases a lot of the cloud tech in this game, so I'm just going to kind of let you enjoy it and then explain some stuff afterwards. That was pretty good. So, the main cloud tech is actually, every time I make a cloud, I crouch as soon as I make it, because that cancels the cloud making animation and allows me to move right away. And you see me do that pretty much every single time I make a cloud, but one thing that actually allows me to do is utilize the upwards bounce that a cloud does when you make it. In the Galaxy games, moving platforms will actually give inertia to Mario's jumps. So for example, if a platform is moving upwards, then I get a large upwards boost to my jump, so I'll go a lot higher. And that's why some of my backflips went a lot higher than they normally would have, because that cloud bounced as it was being made. Another interesting piece of cloud tech here is if you're long jump from the center of a cloud, and you're Cloud Mario and you're above an abyss, you gain a lot of horizontal speed. Which is going to be useful in Fluffy Block 1 here, so I'm going to head up to this cloud here, where I'm not even supposed to go in this star, and just kind of long jump off the edge. And why would there be a death plane here? And with a couple of well-placed clouds, I can just make it all the way over to the last planet of the level. And then here are cloud-boosted long jumps. So, similarly to that cloud bounce mechanic I was talking about, if you make a cloud while you're grounded and then long jump during the upwards bounce of the cloud, like that, then your long jump gains a lot of extra distance and height. So yeah, that skip saves about close to a minute. It also means I bypass the Comet Medal for this level because the Comet Medal is just really far out of the way, and that skip saves so much time that it's not worth it to get the Comet Medal here. There's other places where we can get it. So certain stars that give you power-ups, or where you use a power-up, maybe not necessarily for the first time, will bring you down to this engine room upon completion, where Luma kind of shows the power-up to you, and you don't even get to use it, you just kind of get to stare at it. There's literally no purpose to this room, so I'm just going to yeet on out of here and go back to the button. And this movement is also relatively new. It's also really awkward. Okay, so in order for any percent to work out, I have to go through each of the first 6 worlds and complete all of the boss levels within each of them. And these give me the Grand Stars that give me access to the later worlds. And they alternate between Bowser Jr. and Bowser levels, and they're usually really, really hard. So, in Bowser Jr.'s Fiery Flotilla here, for this stage, I have to make a pretty tight cycle with that Thwomp that has the Comet Medal above it. And this is the kind of movement where one mistake can cost you the cycle, or sometimes even lead you to death, so hopefully this goes well. Alright, so far so good. Alright, we're good. So I can get up on top of this tower here thanks to the Thwomp. And the gravity field of this planet is huge for some strange reason, so I can just skip the rest of the level by long jumping into it. So now I'm going to be fighting Gobblegut, which is widely regarded as one of the hardest bosses in the game, both for casuals and for speedrunners. He has 6 bellyache bulges, and I'm supposed to attack them while he's digging his face into the planet and they pass by. I can actually attack him while he's in the air. If anything goes wrong in this fight with the strategy I'm going to be using, then it's really hard to back it up, so hopefully this goes well. So I'm going to try to get bulges 5, 6, and 1 here in order. Right from this first long jump, this is hard. Alright, so far so good. So now for the second phase, I'm going to run downwards and in a straight line, which will make Gobblegut follow me, and he's actually going to get closer to the planet as he does this. And then right here, I'm going to turn around here, and then try to get the last 3 bulges back to back to back. Right, perfect Gobblegut. So I know I probably just made that fight look really, really easy. That fight actually takes a very, very long time to get good at. And what's worse is that in any percent, you have to do that fight twice. So I get another chance to show off just how annoying that fight can be later in the run. That's it for World 1. So with each of these Grand Stars, like I said, I'm going to be unlocking the next world, which is how I'm going to actually progress in the game. Unfortunately, we have to watch these cutscenes and go through this dialogue after each of the first 5 worlds, so get used to this. There is actually one thing I can point out here while we're waiting, though. So you're gonna notice a little timer in the lower right-hand corner that says 1 minute and 38.83 seconds. That's my in-game time for that level. Unlike Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2 actually keeps track of your in-game time for every star, which is really useful for, obviously for grinding out ILs, but also for getting a good comparison between yourself and like high-level times or intermediate times. It's also really useful for consistency. Alright, so now we're in World 2, which I believe is the shortest world segment in this run. We'll be in and out of here in just a little over 20 minutes. And we're not getting too many stars here, but I think you'll find most of the stars we get here pretty interesting. So, Puzzle Plank, I'm sure you all know this galaxy for its banger of a song, but other than that, there's really not too much to this level other than stuff I'll get to along the way. This galaxy is obviously mostly puzzle-themed. It's mostly just movement-based, and believe it or not, this is a game where movement can actually be pretty difficult to optimize, and you can just lose seconds here from not having good enough movement. But it looks really satisfying when pulled off. On this next planet, I'm going to skip going to the bottom half of it by just backflipping to the launch star. And now would be a good time to talk about spin heights in this game. So when I'm doing this spin, if Mario would backflip the right way, I actually want to be holding A when I'm doing most spins, because then Mario will actually gain more height, and I don't believe the game tells you this anywhere. But another thing the game doesn't tell you about is that with Mario, you actually don't want to spin with the nunchuck. Yes, you can spin with the nunchuck in this game, because the nunchuck actually gives you less height. There are instances where I will want to spin with the nunchuck, and I'll explain why in later stages where it actually becomes relevant. Okay. That section is pretty scary because there's a long stretch with no checkpoints, and if you get hit by one of those buzzsaws, it's pretty easy to get knocked off and lose a lot of time. So this planet has really weird gravity, so sometimes when you ground pound these puzzle pieces, it hits them more than one time. Like that, except it wasn't useful. And we don't really know why it happens, and it's kind of random. But if you get it in a good spot, it can save a little bit of time. Now I just have a little mini boss fight from Galaxy 1. Goes by pretty quickly. Alright. So, once I get my first star in World 2, Lava is actually going to introduce a part of the world map that's actually really useful for speedrunning, called the Grand World Map. So in addition to the individual world maps where you can go from galaxy to galaxy, the Grand World Map actually allows you to go from world to world, which is going to be really useful for when I need to do backtracking, because let's say I'm in World 5 and I want to go back to World 1, then I can just zoom out to this Grand World Map and then go directly from World 5 to World 1 instead of having to backtrack through every individual world. And I'm not going to be world jumping until midway through World 3, but it's still important to point out now. So Lava just goes in and introduces it to us there. Okay. So here's High Scale Falls. This is a pretty fast-paced level, mostly because there's a power-up in here called the Dash Pepper. That's a Yoshi power-up. And it makes Yoshi run really, really fast. And for some reason, when he runs really, really fast, he can climb up really steep slopes. Because, again, Nintendo logic. This is a level where it's actually pretty difficult to avoid star bits, because you can't spit out star bits while on Yoshi, so it's crucial that I don't touch any. And with the Dash Pepper, its effect actually persists between launch stars, so I'm going to try to keep its effect going for as long as I can throughout this level. On this planet, I'm going to be going up the left path here, which is pretty risky, but it has an extra Dash Pepper up there, so I can keep the effect going for longer. That type maneuver is the hard part. And again, this just allows me to keep the effect going. I'm also going to be grabbing this upcoming Dash Pepper a lot later. I'm going to kind of delay it, so it's almost off screen. And now I'm going to do a pretty interesting infinite flutter strat. I'm going to jump off this platform as it's lowering with dash pepper momentum. And then by holding specific angles in the air, I can maintain that momentum while sort of infinite fluttering forwards. And that sort of allows me to make it all the way over here. Gotta do a pretty tight snack here to get this Comet medal. I'm gonna use a shake to slow myself down. And don't look away. So earlier I mentioned that when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all of your momentum. So that last jump I did there is that logic applied to dismounting off of Dash Pepper Yoshi while he's going up a really steep slope. And yeah, you get a lot of height and distance from that. Okay. Up next, we're going to be going to Cosmic Cove Galaxy and getting a couple stars from there. So, Cosmic Cove is... there's not really much in terms of the way of, like, tricks, but where this level is really interesting is actually in its routing. So, I'm going to be doing Cosmic Cove 1 first, but while I'm doing Cosmic Cove 1, I'm also going to be collecting 15 coins to feed a hungry Luma. And the routing for this galaxy is going to be not what you'd expect. So, right as Mario lands here, I'm going to make a quick detour over here to get the Koopa Shell and these star bits. And that's a jump cancel, by the way. That's what I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to use these star bits to kill these Snoodles, because if you shoot them with a star bit and then kill them, you get coins. And I want to do this twice in this route. If I killed them any other way, I would get star bits instead, which is not what I want. Now, if you've seen a Galaxy 1 speedrun before, you probably know that you can just spam spins underwater to go really, really fast. You actually can't do that in this game because they added a cooldown between underwater spins, so it ends up not being faster than just taking the shell. And taking the shell is just better anyways, because it's less work for your arm. And you can also do some pretty cool jumps out of the water like you're about to see here. So, due to the position of everything in this level, what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to hit the switch to freeze the lake, and then you'll notice that the Hungry Luma is just kind of right next to here. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this Hungry Luma, but I'm actually not going to take its launch star, and instead, as soon as the cutscene is finished, I'm going to head straight over to the waterfalls and get Cosmic Cove 1, and then I'm going to do Cosmic Cove Secret by itself next time I enter the galaxy. So I'm just going to run away here and then shake and do some... I'm going to do some skating long jumps to get over here. I believe this is one of the fastest forms of movement in the game. Okay, so now is an important time to talk about auto-selecting stars. So you'll notice that for most of the time when I'm on a star select menu, I don't even have my pointer on the screen. That's actually because if you want to select a clear star, which is the case most of the time, which is basically a star you haven't done, you can just point your Wiimote off screen and mash A, and it'll automatically select that star for you. And this is one of 2 instances in the route where I actually want to make sure I don't do that, because otherwise I'll select Cosmic Cove 2, and I don't have access to the Hungry Luma's launch star in Cosmic Cove 2, so I would have to sit through the level intro cutscenes and then re-enter the galaxy and try again. So we just have to make sure I select Cosmic Cove 1 here. Good thing I always remind myself. There we go. So now we're not losing that 30 seconds or so. And the Hungry Luma's launch star is still available. I don't have to re-unlock it, so I can just make a direct beeline to the launch star. And yeah, as you can see, I can't swim with spins any faster than that because I have to wait for that Luma to go back into Mario's hat. On the way here, I'm going to be grabbing some star bits for a strat coming up. So if you played Galaxy 1 before, you probably remember the bunnies and how much they suck. This is actually the only bunny in this game. And it can go by pretty quickly. Hopefully. Let's see if I can get this. Alright. So what you're supposed to do to catch that bunny is run off to the left and hit that blue switch, which will freeze the lake and allow you to skate to catch the bunny, because otherwise you can't go fast enough. But if you just shoot the bunny with star bits before you run after it, it just runs the wrong way for no reason, which allows you to catch it while it's still in the water. Right, so if you remember the Galaxy 2 runs from the 246 relay race in February of 2019, and you haven't seen a SMG2 run since then, this is where the routing differences are going to come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to this toad here, and I'm going to extract star bits from this. This is the bank toad, and these are actually star bits from another file, and I'm going to withdraw them into this file, and these are the star bits I'm going to be using to unlock all Hungry Luma galaxies. So yes, this is sort of a new game plus type of deal, and I need about that many. And now I'm going to actually unlock Honey Bloom. So the process for unlocking Hungry Luma galaxies does take some time, but it usually gives me access to really fast stars, which makes it worth it. And because of the bank toad, I won't have to collect any star bits in any galaxies, hence why I'm going to be able to avoid them. Now granted, I am a little short on star bits, so I am going to have to go out of my way to get a few, but no more than like 100. It's not a huge deal. So this first star I'm going to be getting here is actually a great example of why going out of your way to unlock Hungry Luma galaxies is really fast. I'm going to be getting both stars here in Honey Bloom, but this first star, the secret star, is a hidden wall jumping section right at the beginning of the level. And I'm just going to kind of let the next 20 seconds or so speak for themselves. You're going to really enjoy this movement if I pull it off. There we go. Like I said, pretty fast. So that, I believe, is the fastest star in the game if you don't count the green stars, which are sort of extra stars you get after getting all 120 and finishing the game. Yeah, 16 seconds in game time, definitely worth getting. So here's actually going to be an interesting male toad warp. So because I just got Honey Bloom's secret, Luma brings me down here to the bottom of the starship so I can see that B NPC. But because I just got 15 stars, the male toad has a letter for me. And this is for a star I'm not even going to get. So I'm instantly warped from that location on the starship to the male toad, which saves several seconds in travel time. And gets me to that button a lot quicker. I'm going to be utilizing that one more time in this run. So I'm going to re-enter and do Honey Bloom 1. When I last showed this game, when this game was last shown on GSA, this star wasn't in the route. And then a few months after that, we found that this star is actually slightly faster to do than Supermassive 1. This entire level's in 2D, so there's not really much you can do in the way of sequence breaks, and it's also B Mario based. I am going to try to skip B Mario for most of the section here. So you're not supposed to stand on these clouds or flowers if you don't have a B Mario, but you have a few frames where you can jump on them instead. I'm going to be trying to use this to get to the end of this section. Alright, there we go. That jumps the important one. But now I have no choice but to use B Mario. And unfortunately he is very, very slow. Because B Mario kind of strips away most of your movement options, and your flight isn't very fast either. So once I get here, I'm actually going to intentionally take damage from this Choppa so I can lose it. And that allows me to get through this pull section a little bit quickly. I might be in trouble here. Alright, saved it. I didn't mean to grab that beast suit, but it's fine. And this last portion of the level is just me flying around with B Mario. There's not really much to talk about. So the reason why doing Honey Bloom 1 saves time, as I kind of alluded to earlier, this star is technically slower in game time than Supermassive 1, which is what it replaces. Or what it replaced, because this route's over a year and a half old at this point. But the thing is, doing this star instead of Supermassive 1 allows you to skip out on several world map cutscenes that Supermassive 1 would otherwise require, and therefore, when done optimally, doing this star instead saves about 15 to 20 seconds or so. I probably didn't get the full time save there, but that still wasn't too bad. And speaking of route changes, this game, Any Percent also had a route change within the past couple of months. It's nothing too significant. There's just stars were moved around in a different order. And I'll explain why it saves time in a little bit, and I'll even provide a couple of examples when it shows up. Alright. So we're going to be coming up on the first Bowser level here. This is Bowser's Lavalier. This level has a lot of really cool strategies in it that save a lot of time in total when done, but it is also a very punishing level, and on top of that, I'm going to have to manage health in this level because there's going to be a lot of damage abusing. But there's a lot of really cool skips sort of in a back-to-back fashion in this level. Like right here at the start, you're supposed to kill a Magic Koopa here to get this full star to appear in order to get to this next planet, but you can just long jump into this gravity field instead. And then same thing here, you're supposed to hit a spring here, but you can just side flip and spin. Right here I'm going to grab the Life Mushroom, which gives me 3 additional units of health. It's now very important that I don't go below 4 health, otherwise I can't get that the additional 3 health back. And I need at least 4 health for the end of the level. So here's a Lava Boost here to skip having to fight that Hammer Brother. Need to do a wall jump there to get a little bit of extra distance. I'm going to turn the camera here to get the Womps off camera so that their cycles can be manipulated. I'm going to do something cool here. I'm going to double jump into the lava, which will store a triple jump for when I land. Allow me to get that Comet a little bit quicker. And right there, I jumped off that Womp as it was rising off, so I was able to get some momentum from it. Alright, here comes the skip I needed 4 HP for. So I can skip a couple of snake block auto-scrollies here by just kind of long jumping off over here, and then lava boosting and then bouncing on these statues. That might have looked weird to you, how I bounced on that one statue but then was immediately able to begin long jumping again. So when you hit the lava in this game and then land on a floor, Mario does a short little bounce before you can regain control of him. However, if you do that short bounce and then land in the lava again, the game will remember that you did that short bounce. And so that was how I was able to immediately begin long jumping. The spacing on that can be pretty tight. Alright. This is the first of the 3 Bowser fights in this run. The Bowser fights in this game aren't terribly interesting for the most part. This one in particular can be pretty boring. Basically, Bowser just summons a bunch of meteors, and then he punches the planet, and while he's trying to pull his fist out, you can ground pound the meteors into him, and you have to do this 4 times. Missing hits on this fight, on these fights, is around a 20-second time loss per miss. Because Bowser has to summon the meteors again, and you have to go through an entire cycle of his attacks. So you don't want to do that. And other than that, really the only optimizations you can do are making Bowser punch as soon as possible, and then ground pounding the meteor in such a way that it doesn't have to travel super far to Bowser. So angle matters, and also where Bowser punches. You want him to punch pretty close to the meteors. Now for the 3rd and 4th hits, Bowser breathes fire before he punches the planet. And I actually want to pay attention to where this fire attack ends, because that's where he's actually going to start aiming his next punch. And therefore, I need to make sure I remember that, because then I can manipulate him into punching right away. That was actually a pretty bad position. This fight in particular is pretty boring. As we go into the later Bowser fights, there's going to be some additional manipulation we have to do. I just gotta sit through some more dialogue and some more cutscenes here. And this will actually mark the end of the World 2 segment. When I say that, I mean the end of the period between the World 1 Grand Star and the World 2 Grand Star. I am going to come back to World 2 later in the run to do some cleanup, but that won't be for a little while. Right, so we're not quite a third of the way through the game, but we're almost there. Okay, so World 3 is where I would say the run sort of ramps up in difficulty, because the early game in this category isn't that bad. But once you get to World 3, it becomes a lot easier to make major mistakes, and usually World 3 is where the time losses start becoming a lot bigger. It's also at the point where you're less likely to reset. Because, you know, why would you reset a 3-hour speedrun an hour in? Just waste more of your free time. So World 3 is where I would say the run really kind of begins, if you must. This world is also going to be where comets start appearing, and I'll explain that when they actually start appearing and what they are. Alright, so at the start of World 3, I have a bit of a fork in the road I can take. I'm actually going to take the bottom path, and we're going to go to Cloudy Court. So now it's been a while since we've used the Cloud Flower, and I'm sure you've probably missed seeing how broken it is, but don't worry, you get to see more of that in this level. So there are two things that I need to talk about in terms of this level. The first is what I call 4 cloud strats, and I'm actually going to be doing that twice in this level, the first of which is actually right at the very beginning here. So I mentioned earlier the whole deal with cloud-boosted long jumps and how you basically make a cloud walk rounded. So what I'm going to do right here, once I make it to this next platform, is I'm going to cloud boost into this upcoming cloud flower. Like so. And it replenishes my cloud stock, so I can use the remaining 3 clouds to cross that distance. So I basically use 4 clouds for a single maneuver, hence the name. I need to be facing this drum so I can ledge grab it, like that. That way I can keep all 3 clouds here. And I can use that to skip that launch star. Make it all the way up here. Right. And now in this 2D section, I'm going to be doing another 4 cloud strat here. After I climb up this wall. And that allows me to kind of make it over this wall here. Okay, that was a little close. And now I have these crushers that I gotta make it through. I'm gonna try to one-cycle these crushers. Okay, nice, I got it. That's a lot harder to figure out than it looks. There are multiple different setups you can use for that, and that's the best setup I found. But it works out pretty nicely. You lose about 10 seconds if you don't make that cycle, which is really easy to do, because you also have to get that Comet medal. And if you try to make it after that and you're too slow, you'll get crushed and die. And that's even worse. Okay, so chat, are you ready to have some fun? Because next up is Freezie Blake's Secret. And this is a skating minigame with that chimp guy we saw in Fluffy Bluff. So the chimp's going to challenge me to a skating minigame where I need to beat his high score, and it's a timed challenge. And I have to wait for the timer to expire. I can't stop it by finishing the minigame early. And it doesn't lose time to get as high of a score as possible. So if you want to guess what score I'm going to get, you have to guess anywhere between 500 and 900 points, and guess in multiples of 10, so stuff like 570, 650, 730. And the way I usually determine ruling for this is, if no one gets it exactly right, whoever's closest ahead or behind wins. So I'm expecting chat to blow up here. Alright. The pipe here is just kind of hidden in that tree there. So during these skating mini games, I'm actually gonna show off something cool here. You might not know about this. If you press Z while you're skating, you actually start skating backwards, and your controls aren't really changed. And I don't know why it's in here, but it's a cool little mechanic I can show off. So the patterns for this, they're technically consistent every time you play, but what's random about it is the rotation. So there's, I believe, 3 possible ways this can be rotated, but once you know what rotation you're on, it's that rotation for the remainder of the minigame. So I have muscle memory for all 3 of them. So I've already made the high score here, but I'm going to try to go a little bit further than that. So whoever gets either 850 or closest to 850 would have won. And if you missed your chance there, if you didn't get it, there's another opportunity to guess later in the run, so don't feel too sad. Yeah, pretty simple minigame that just happens to be fast enough to work out for the route. Okay, so there's one more star I'm going to want to get in Freezie Flake, and I'm actually going to be getting Freezie Flake 1 here. So this is an instance where it doesn't actually matter what order I'm doing the stars in. I'm just doing the secret star first so I can auto-select Freezie Flake 1 here, like that, so I don't have to point my Wii remote at the screen. And for most of this star, I'm going to be on a very, very tight timer. Because there's a Comet Medal in the next section that I'm going to try to reach, and I'm going to try to reach it and blow up the wall behind it with this Fire Flower. I have about maybe 2 seconds or so to spare here, and the movement is somewhat tight, but it's not too hard to do. Right, we should be good. As long as you don't make any major mistakes there, you should be fine. Alright, yeah. As you can see, I did not have that much time left when I got that. So if you miss that, then you have to grab that Fire Flower, blow up that wall, and then wait for the next Fire Flower to spawn, because you do not have enough time to make it all the way over here, and then blow up this Bowser statue. And so that would lose about 20 to 25 seconds. And it's really, really annoying. But that didn't happen, so we're good. And we're actually going to get a short little visit here from everybody's favorite green brother, Luigi. So, from this point onwards, you're going to see Luigi start appearing at the start of various stars. And here's a common theme in this run. Luigi does jump faster, just jump higher and run faster than Mario. But the common theme of this run is we're just going to ditch him whenever we can, because even though he is technically faster in gameplay than Mario is, first of all, this category is kind of more designed around Mario in terms of the tricks you do. It just works better with Mario. And second of all, it takes time to talk to Luigi, and then he also talks to you after the mission is complete, and you only get to use him for that 1 star, so it loses too much time for the amount of time he would save. So this entire run is going to be Mario only. Sorry, Luigi fans. Not sorry. So I'm going to turn the camera a few times here. So as I've alluded to a couple times already, when moving platforms and objects are not on camera, they don't move. So there's moving platforms at the start here that I manipulated into being off camera for a few seconds, because I'm going to try to make a somewhat tight platform cycle here by doing that. I might barely make it here. It doesn't save too much time, but it's this cycle right here. And even with that camera adjustment, it's really, really tight. I did have to skip out on a checkpoint there. So those first 2 platforms are based on cycles, but this and the next platform actually start moving when you enter a certain radius. And you can actually long jump to skip most of them. And then the Comet Medal platform, I believe it stops moving once you enter the launch star, so only your movement up until then matters. I could be wrong though, it's so confusing. Okay, there we go. And in this section we get Yoshi, so guess what, we're gonna Infinite Flutter. And this power-up here is the Bulb Berry. Basically illuminates floors under Yoshi that otherwise wouldn't exist, but as you can see, I don't really need it. So something very important just happened, and that's that I got my 4th star from World 3. So from this point onwards, comets are going to start spawning, and in order for comets to spawn in galaxies, I need the comet medal from that galaxy and a certain number of comet medals total. And the order they spawn in is basically in order from least amount of comet medals required to most. And I'm going to be trying to manipulate these comet spawns to be at very specific times for specific reasons. But for now, I'm just going to be kind of letting them build up and clearing out some other stars while I'm at it. Alright, so Haunty Halls 2, this is basically Long Jump Simulator 2010. Because if you've never watched a Galaxy speedrun before, this is probably what you imagine the run is all about. You're basically just long jumping from beginning to end. Long jumping is actually somewhat tricky to optimize in the Galaxy games. It's not as straightforward as it might seem. So 2 things to talk about is that when you initiate a long jump from running, you can actually save time by pressing Z and A at roughly the same time, because then you can keep running speed after landing from the long jump if you continue running. And that's going to be useful a few times throughout this run. And also when you're chaining long jumps, you can... there's a small frame window where you have to press A optimally, and also you can slightly change your angle when chaining long jumps, but this usually comes at a cost of speed, so you won't see me do that too often. You also need a decent amount of acceleration in order to begin long jumping, otherwise you'll backflip instead, and that usually wastes a lot of time. And so it's very easy to get too greedy and try to long jump too soon, and then you just backflip, and then you feel like an idiot. Yeah. Not much to talk about for that level. It's literally just a straight line, pretty much. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing the next Hungry Luma Galaxy. This is one in World 3, and this is going to be the unlocking of Beat Block Galaxy. This Hungry Luma is really weird, because for some reason the last star bit always shoots out late. And this is one of 2 Hungry Lumas in the game that's like this. The other one you're not going to see. But this actually is pretty useful, because I can set up a backflip while I'm feeding the Hungry Luma, since I can move. Another thing I can do is I'm holding B while this Luma is talking, so once the dialogue finishes, I will only start shooting star bits if I'm pointed at the Hungry Luma. That's the late star bit. And it just makes it a little bit easier to time that backflip. So, because of that, holding the B button and it only shoots a star bit if I'm pointing at the Hungry Luma, which means I don't have to worry about shooting my star bits away. Beat Block Galaxy, this is another level that's kind of just a bunch of long jumps, but this time, how fast I go actually matters. Because these blocks switch every 8 beats of the song, which makes this level pretty cycle-based. And missing the optimal cycle is about a 7 to 8 second time loss, so hopefully I get it. It also means I'd have to do a lot of improvising. That being said, I'm going to kind of go intentionally slow here, so that I don't accidentally get caught on those green blocks. So far, so good. I have some silver stars to collect here. This last long jump coming up here is really scary. The angle and that is not in the notches of your controller, so it's really easy to just bonk and fall and die. Alright, so now I'm going to begin the first of a couple backtracking sessions in this run. So I don't have quite enough stars in World 3 in order to unlock the barrier to Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet without getting stars that are too slow for the route. So I'm actually going to go back to World 1 and do some cleanup. and I'll be able to get just enough stars in order to unlock the barrier. And like I alluded to earlier, I'm going to be using the Grand World Map to do that. So I'm going to zoom out, and as you can see, I can just go straight from World 3 to World 1 and not have to do any annoyingly long backtracking. And the next galaxy I'm going to do is also a Hungry Luma galaxy. So this galaxy is going to be Flip Swap Galaxy, and this galaxy has an interesting gimmick where every time you spin, it switches between red platforms being active and blue platforms being active. Now, where this gets fun is that the platforms sort of flip upwards. They rise upwards as they're switching, which means if you jump off of them as they're rising upwards, you can get a huge boost added to your jump. I'm going to be trying to use this a lot throughout this stage. Now, these jumps, most of them aren't too hard, but the first one is particularly tricky, and if you miss these, it can lead to death. But if I pull these off, this level's going to look really, really stylish. So hopefully this goes well. Like I said, this first super jump is probably the hardest one.
Yes.
Come on. There we go. So I can just kind of get a huge boosted jump there. Right, that's fine. The rest of them aren't too bad. There's another one. Another piece of tech that's useful for this level is that I can actually cancel a spin with a long jump or a single jump. Like that. I'm gonna do that. Oh. I don't know what I was thinking there. So now I have to redo all of that. That's a pretty costly death. Because I didn't get the checkpoint. In this game, you actually have to physically touch the checkpoint flags in order to get a checkpoint. In Galaxy 1, they just kind of happen automatically. So yeah, and because of that super jump, I have to skip over that checkpoint. So, pretty costly death. I kind of got distracted there. There we go. Right here, I'm going to use that spin cancel tech to... Okay, what I was trying to do was get a mini super jump off that platform, but that's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to actually start doing Comet Stars, and Comets are basically modified versions of galaxies that have some sort of added gimmick or challenge to them. And again, these are what I've been collecting these Comet medals for. And again, just like Hungry Luma galaxies, sometimes going out of my way to get Comet medals, even if it's for a galaxy that doesn't have a comet, will end up being worth it because I can get really fast stars as a result. Okay. So this first type of comet is actually exclusive to Galaxy 2. It's called the Romp Comet. And what it is basically I have to kill a certain amount of enemies within a time limit, and there's usually some kind of special gimmick to it. In this case, it's actually the Rainbow Star, which is sort of the invincibility star. But there's one crucial element to the Rainbow Star, is that while you're running on the ground, you start to build up this sort of P-speed, and I want to maintain that P-speed for as long as I can, which is harder than it sounds, because I basically can't run into any walls, and slow down at all. Another thing to keep in mind with this stage is that earlier I talked about how moving objects don't move if they're not on camera. That applies to the Spinies in this level. So if a Spiny dies and then goes off camera, the counter doesn't update until it completes its death animation on camera. So that can really trip a lot of players up, where they know they killed a Spiny, but when they get to the end, the counter just says 29 out of 30, and you have to rotate the camera a few times to get that last Spiny to die. But if you know what you're doing, then it's not super hard to avoid. The next kind of comet that I'm going to be doing is this one in Sky Station. It's the Speedy Comet, or Time Attack, or whatever you want to call it, or as Nintendo calls it, the Speed Space Run Comet. We're just going to kind of ignore that because we all know it's grammatically incorrect. And this is actually a shortened version of Sky Station 1. It skips like half the planets, so it's worth it for the route. But there's a special gimmick added to the Speedy Comets in this game, where you'll notice I only have 20 seconds to start with, and that is nowhere near enough time to complete this level. Even though it is shortened, but there are clocks throughout the level that add 10 seconds to my time, so I want to route those in whenever I can. So now I'm coming up on Peewee Piranha. I'm going to be basically going for what I went for in the first fight, where I'm going to ground pound Peewee's shell instead of spinning at him to break it. And again, I have Starbits saved up so I can hit him after I break the shell. There is something very unfortunate that can happen during the fights with Peewee. If you shoot Peewee with a Starbit right as a cutscene's about to start, then what actually happens is the cutscene just never starts and you're unable to interact with Peewee in any way, which soft locks the fight. If that happens in Sky Station Comet, you'd have to exit the level and re-enter or die or whatever. But if it happens in Sky Station 1, you actually have to reset. So, thankfully it didn't happen. It's not too hard to avoid, but you just gotta be careful. Okay, so I'm done with this first backtracking session, which means I'm going to actually go back to World 3. I still need 2 more stars to unlock the barrier to Bowser Jr.'s fearsome fleet, but I can get both of them in World 3 here. So to start, we're going to go to Tall Trunk. And Tall Trunk is a pretty interesting level. There's a lot of really cool strats in this star, but it's a really satisfying level to pull off, but it's also really difficult to pull off everything. So on this first planet, you're supposed to use Yoshi and the Blimp Fruit to climb this tree, but that's slow. So is Infinite Fluttering with Yoshi. And Mario happens to be a very skilled acrobat, so I can just use his various jumps to scale this entire tree without Yoshi. Just like that. That saves a little bit of time. But don't worry, we'll give Yoshi his time to shine on these next 2 planets. Alright, this Comet Metal grab right here is really, really awkward because it's a straight backwards infinite flutter. And if I messed that Comet Metal, I'd have to flutter forward to get it, which would kill my ability to go backwards. And then I'd have to grab the Blimp Fruit, and that's just super slow. Managed to grab all 5 of those starships in one fall. I'm going to ditch Yoshi here, because first of all, it allows me to get to this launch star a little bit quicker. And second, because I can actually do a ground pound immediately at the start of this planet to fall all the way down. Like that. And Yoshi would just be in his egg ready for me. Now, unfortunately here, I have no choice but to use the Blimp Fruit to climb up this tree. So, the last part of this level is somewhat slow. A couple things I can do to optimize it are staying closer to the inner part of this curve here so that I travel the least distance up the tree. And also, I grabbed that Blimp Fruit I shook out of that one Blimp Fruit with the nunchuck instead of the Wii Remote so I could keep my pointer pointed at the next Blimp Fruit. Overall, it's a pretty good Tall Trunk. Okay. Last star before finishing off World 3 we're going to get is this one down here, Cloudycore Comet. So this introduces the, you saw back in Sky Station 2, those little mini Space Mario guys that sort of mimicked Mario's every move, frame perfectly. This level is basically all about them. There's a lot of comets in this game that are like this, and they are all really, really annoying because Cosmic Cones basically make backtracking almost impossible. In this first section, I'm going to try to prevent them from spawning by barely touching the edges of these starships. It doesn't really save or lose time, but... Well, it does if I do that. Okay, so Cosmic Clones were supposed to spawn on that second starship, but I was able to prevent them from spawning there. You can actually prevent them from spawning the entire time, but I was bad. Now we're in the 2D section, which is where they're at their worst. So if I mess up a wall jump here, the Cosmic Clones will also make that exact same mistake. So when I try to get back up, they're just all in the way and it's impossible. Oh, we're good. As long as I don't do anything stupid here. Alright. Now I just gotta break this crystal to get to the star. And there we go. Alright, so if you thought the infinite flutters in this run that you've seen so far this run were crazy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet is a very, very interesting level when it comes to infinite flutters. So, the entire level is basically all one height, and you get Yoshi right at the start. So you can essentially just infinite flutter from beginning to end and skip all like the auto-scrollers and stuff. And the strat I'm going to be going for here is widely regarded as one of the toughest infinite flutters in the game. It's called the question block flutter, because you're basically, so to kind of explain what I'm going to do, I'm going to get on Yoshi, flutter to an asteroid that for some reason has collision, then flutter from there to a question block in the middle of where the airships spawn. And then I have to get a precise angle from a small set of angles that would work, infinite flutter from the top of the question block through the Comet Metal, and then go underneath this glass structure and dismount onto the final platform of the level. I get no checkpoints when I'm doing this, so if I die, I go all the way back to the start. And this strat looks really impressive when it's pulled off, but it's also really terrifying, so I hope you don't get any heart attacks from this. Okay, this flutter isn't too hard, but the next two are where it starts to get difficult. Alright. This flutter to the question block is kind of weird because of the perspective. It's kind of easy to overshoot, or undershoot this block. Okay, here we go. I trust this angle. I probably shouldn't, but I think it's good. Okay, so I got the angle for that really, really quickly. There's only a small number of angles that'll actually work for that flutter, because not everything is perfectly aligned, and you need Yoshi to kind of veer off to the right like that. And you also have to be really good at controlling your height there, because if you go too low, you die, but if you... you also have to make sure you rise up quickly enough to dismount onto that final platform. And go low enough to get under the structure. It's just really stupid. Now I have to fight Mega Hammer, which is another pointer-based boss that can go really badly. Right here I'm going to set up for an early hit by trying to walk forward with those two bullet bills in reserve. And that allows me to get both of those hits in one cycle. I'm actually going to avoid doing that here, because I want to cancel one of Mega Hammer's attacks. Because when he was shaking his hammers there, he was getting ready to smash them together, so doing that canceled the attack. Now that I'm behind him, I'm going to get 3 bullet bills to come here. I'm going to use 2 of them to take out this vacuum spot. I'm going to get the third one in Yoshi's mouth, and I'm going to try to have it store through the cutscene. Sometimes this doesn't work. It's kind of random if it does or not, so let's see what happens. Alright. And here, Mega Hammer's supposed to lower its head so that you can hit the bullet. You can shoot the bullet bills at the cockpit. That was not what I wanted to have happen. But the hitbox is always active, so you can just do a side flip and full flutter to reach it. Now what actually happened there was my pointer very, very briefly glitched out, and when that happens and you spit something out with Yoshi, he just spits it out in the direction he's facing. Also, you would think Yoshi gets his time to shine in the spotlight for this Grand Star cutscene, but no. And don't worry, I'm not like killing Yoshi or anything. Yoshi's are immortal, and he will live there forever. And if I ever dump Yoshi in a pit, I'm not actually killing him. He just sort of transforms into an egg when he reaches the death barrier. and then he respawns somewhere else, so don't worry. Yoshi's never gonna die in this run, unless he gets hit by something. Okay, so now I'm coming up on the World 4 segment. This is actually the longest world segment in the run, but that's partly because due to the reroute, we actually stuck a backtracking session midway through it. And the routing here is gonna seem weird, but you're gonna see why it saves time near the end of World 4. But things are gonna start off pretty normal looking for the time being. I have a couple of options to where to go first here. The game probably wanted you to go to Supermassive, but it gives you that convenient fork in the road to go to Sweet Mystery instead, and this is just a better level anyways. So I'm going to take the time to unlock it. So if you remember how Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Plea was a bunch of infinite fluttering, this level is more or less the same, except it's not nearly as terrifying. This is actually one of the coolest levels that you can see ILs of, because there's a few... I mentioned the 10-second cooldown that you have, the 10-second limit you have to infinite fluttering before Yoshi loses his speed. You can circumvent that in a few ways. One of them is actually by bouncing off of enemies or objects, which resets the timer, and the IL of this level does that like 3 times and completes this level basically in 1 flutter. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing that, but this level should still look pretty impressive. This first flutter I'm going to be essentially doing blind, because I'm not going to take the time to set up the camera. So I have to get a blind angle there. That was actually really far back. If you have a good enough angle, you can go all the way over to this Comet Medal over here, but this doesn't lose too much time. And from here, these infinite flutters should kind of speak for themselves. Okay, right here I'm going to skip hitting all these flip switches to get a launch star to spawn. This infinite flutter, you have to be really careful, because if you somehow fall during this flutter, you don't actually die. You instead land on this weird invisible floor. Okay, that was weird. And it takes like an additional 20 seconds to find a ledge you can fall off of. So, yeah, you don't want to do that. And the really hard part about learning infinite fluttering, believe it or not, is actually the rhythm. Because I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. You have to hold A to flutter, tap Z to crouch, release A, release Z, and then press A again. If you mess that up, then it's very likely that you'll accidentally press Z and A at the same time, which means you'll dismount off of Yoshi, and 99% of the time, you are going to die. Okay. So we're gonna take a break from Yoshi for a little bit, and we're gonna go to Flexville Galaxy next. This galaxy, Flexville 1, is a very cool level. There's a lot of really cool skips you can do here. And this route, I think, you're gonna find this route pretty impressive. So I'm gonna back up onto this wall here, so I can skip over to the Comet Medal a little bit quicker. Okay, I did not want to do that. I'm gonna ground pound here, and luckily I know where to go. So the Comet Medal's over here, and then I can actually long jump from here to the second planet, like so. But that actually unloads a kill plane, as I skip the launch star, so I can get over here, backflip, and then slide off this roof to get a slight amount of backwards momentum. So I'm falling with a good amount of backwards momentum, and once I get close enough to the boss planet, I can just spin and enter its gravity field, and that skips about half the level. Now here's Glamdozer. This fight isn't too hard, because Glamdozer's entire body is vulnerable, not just the target on its back. So I'm going to camp out underneath its chin. And just kind of wait for it to become vulnerable before ground pounding it. It's always fun to keep flipping that panel when you have downtime. So yeah, very entertaining level, basically from beginning to end. So this star is going to be the first of 3 stars in the run where I'm going to get a mail toad letter from Rosalina. This is actually going to account for 150 of the star bits I need in this run, because for the last Hungry Luma Galaxy I need 1800, but I only have 1650. And so this route actually happens to work out to where we can get 150 of the star bits we need just from these letters, because there's 3 of them and they get 50 each. Okay. So Flexville 2, this level mostly revolves around the spin drill, and Nintendo did not try at all with this level, because you're supposed to use the spin drill on the first 2 planets, but you can very easily skip it on both planets. It's actually kind of stupid how easy this is. Like, for example, on this first planet, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump around this wall to get to the launch star. That. And then here you can wall jump on this structure, which you wouldn't think you should be able to do, but you can. Right. This first part of this 2D section here is very tight. Okay. So if I was a little bit faster there, I could have made a faster cycle here, but that's going to be a bit of a time loss. That first room is really, really tight. And from here, this part's just kind of half auto-scroller, half cycle-based, because you do have to wait for most of these cycles, but you also have to make sure you don't miss any. Okay. Right here, I'm going to wait after the gravity switches before drilling, because for some reason, if the gravity switches sooner after this cutscene ends, which should happen. Okay. Then when I drill here to get to the star, I just grab the star automatically. It affects your hitbox in some weird way that I don't quite understand. And if I didn't wait there, I would have had to wait for the gravity to flip me over to the star. Now, I'm going to leave Sweet Mystery and Flexville for now, but if you are observant, you might have noticed that Sweet Mystery and Flexville's comets haven't spawned yet, even though I collected the comet medals for both galaxies and have the right number of comet medals. And I'll explain why when I start the next backtracking session. So Chompworks 1 is a long level for this category's standards, but it does give me access to 2 pretty fast levels. The unfortunate part is that this level involves a lot of waiting around for chomps. But this first planet has a lot to take in. So this slope, I'm just going to run up the side of it, and then I'm not affected by the slope's physics, which allows me to get there a little bit faster. And I'm kind of on a tight schedule here to get this comet middle. And I have to make it down to this platform to lower it. And then I have to make sure I long jump into this launch star. Okay, whatever. I didn't do it, but if I long jumped into it, it would have prevented this upcoming landing stun. Oh, I got a jump cancel, so it doesn't even matter. And on this planet, I'm going to try a little bit of a strat here. I'm going to barely touch the left edge of the seesaw, because that will make it lower just enough for this first chomp to make it on, instead of having to wait for the second chomp to come, like we used to. Unfortunately, you can't really do anything to speed up this last planet. It's kind of just one long auto-scroller. And you also can't get to this first chomp in time under normal conditions. Now, you can get to this first chomp in time if you're using a second player. Because if you have a second player, they take the form of an orange Luma, and one of the things they can do is stop enemies. They can actually hold that first chomp in place and make it so that you can get onto the first platform in time. but it's really awkward to hold 2 Wii remotes at once and I have no one to play it with, and it doesn't really save time hardly anywhere else. So, for all intents and purposes, this is just going to be a one-player run. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of screw around here while I'm waiting for this jump. Try to get a super high back whip off this button. Oh, I went too early. Alright. Yeah, not the most exciting level in the world, but it's worth doing. So, if you ever played Galaxy 1 and hated the Spring Mushroom, then you're probably not going to enjoy this next star, because the entire premise of it is based around the Spring Mushroom. Luckily, I can skip it for the first 2 planets, because, again, Nintendo is really good at making games. And it's actually possible to skip the Spring Mushroom for this level entirely, but it's faster to use it on the last planet. Now, there is one other thing that is worth bringing up. So, there are elevators on the last planet that are on a cycle, but you can see the elevators moving from the first planet, which means if I don't have really, really fast movement on this first planet, I could miss out on a platform cycle that saves about 5 seconds. Okay, I need to have really good movement here because I didn't get the jump cancel. I don't know if that's good enough, it probably isn't. Okay, so I wasn't able to get a landing cancel there because it's not normally possible to go into first person mode on this planet. You can still do it if you hit up on the D-pad on the first frame you land, though. Also, this is where spinning with the nunchuck is useful because for some reason it lets you spin sooner after a wall jump. So I use it there to climb up a little bit quicker. Let's see what happens here. I'm probably not going to make the cycle, but it's really, really, really tight. Okay. No. Okay, so I made the first cycle, but it's also really hard to stay on it, and I also barely made it, so that kind of ruined things. Oh, goodness. Spring Mushroom is not exactly the easiest power-up to control. There we go. So, next is actually going to be another backtracking session, after we are once again pointlessly brought down to the engine room. So this backtracking session I'm about to do actually used to be done after World 4 was finished, but before going to World 5. But now we've kind of stuck it in the middle of World 4. Mainly for one reason, that is mostly relevant at the very end of World 4. So I'm going to get the rest of the stars I want from Worlds 1 and 2 during this backtracking session. Once again, I'm going to use the Grand World map to go from World 4 to World 2. And the first star I'm going to get is Puzzle Planet Comet. This star is actually pretty interesting because in order to unlock this star, in addition to the other requirements, I have to get Cloudy Quartz Comet because that unlocks every Cosmic Cone Comet in the game. And I'm getting this Comet now because it unlocks every Purple Coin Comet in the game. Now, if you are very observant, like I said earlier, you probably noticed that Sweet Mystery and Flexville's Comets didn't spawn. They're both Purple Coin Comets, but once I get this star, then they will spawn. This star is also really, really difficult. I know I might make it look super mundane, but trust me. Getting all 4 of these purple coins in one go is not easy. Okay. It also doesn't help that there's Cosmic Bones. Come on. I overshot that jump there. Okay. That was not too great. And I'm doing these short little hops here because they make Mario move slightly faster than if he were just running. Right, super easy to grab a star to here, where you should be good. So now the purple coin comets that I didn't spawn earlier are going to start spawning, which will give me access to a lot more stars. We actually used to do Puzzle Planet Comet before going to World 4. That way, all the purple coin comets would spawn during the first visit, and we could make it through World 4 in one trip. But doing it this way allows for some other routing possibilities. So now I'm going to go to Boulder Bowl 1. This star has moved locations like 3 times in the route, since this route was made. So, Boulder Bowl 1 has a very interesting gravity exploit that you're actually going to see 2 variants of in this run. This first variant is going to be done with Rock Mario because I need to get the Comet Medal, and it's going to abuse an oversight with these ramps here that you can use Rock Mario on. If you do a spin jump as Rock Mario onto one of these ramps, it actually deactivates the ramp and allows you to jump off the ramp instead of having to actually take it. And I'm going to use this to jump off the ramp to the left and do a gravity exploit to skip a planet that would involve killing a bunch of slow enemies. If you miss this trick, it can lose a lot of time because you have to redo everything, including getting this Comet Medal. Here we go. Good. Okay, so you can go straight into the crystal there, but obviously I made the skip. So, I know I only skipped 1 planet, but that probably saves close to a minute, because that planet requires killing an awful amount of enemies, and it's super slow. Great. Now we have to fight Romo Dylan. This is one of the most awkward bosses in the run, and one of the most tedious to do. This first hit isn't bad, but for the second, third, and fourth hits, I really want to stay out of his line of sight. Because I want to avoid, he would do this rolling attack that wastes a lot of time. So basically we kind of have to go behind him, but he's trying to chase me while I'm trying to chase him, which makes this very awkward. In addition to that, I'm also going to be attempting to do some jump spins to extend the length of my roll. So that I can potentially get these in one roll. And it's really awkward, because sometimes the planet's gravity just eat your jumps. And if you don't have the right angle, you'll roll past Romo Dylan and end up in his line of sight, and that's bad. But that fight went pretty well. So coming up is actually another Mail Toad Warp. So because I just got Boulder Bowl 1, I'm going to be taken down to the engine room to see the rock mushroom appear. However, a letter from the Mail Toad for Boulder Bowl letter appears when you get both Boulder Bowl 1 and a star from Chompworks. And so that letter is actually going to spawn once Lava's done talking to me. So once again, the game's going to bring me out of the engine room and to the Mail Toad to get that letter. Which again, saves a few seconds of travel time. And speaking of Boulder Bowl letter, that's actually the next star I'm going to do. So here you're actually going to get to see Boulder Bowl 1 skip without Rock Mario. It's actually quite a bit simpler than what you just saw, and not that difficult, although there is a jump across the bridge here that has a somewhat wonky camera. But because I don't need Rock Mario for this star, I don't have to get it right away. Or, I don't need Rock Mario for this first part. So yeah, it's really simple here. I can just run up the ramp, long jump to the left, spin, and I enter the gravity field. But now this is the dumb part. So I have to lure this Goomba here all the way over to this gear mode. And I have to make sure this Goomba doesn't get crushed, so I'm going to get hit here intentionally so that it stops. And then I can have it run all the way over here. And there's a chance for the game to soft lock for absolutely no reason here. And it didn't happen, so we're good. The game can just soft lock there in that cutscene for nobody knows why. It's pretty rare that it does happen, but, you know, if there were ever a time. And the other issue with this star is that you only get 2 Goombas, and if both of them die, you have to redo the level. So, really fun! Yeah, pretty simple level, once you figure out how to do it consistently. Okay, and the next, I believe, 6 stars are all going to be comets. After lava bothers us again. It'll start to become less frequent, don't worry. Okay, so the first Comet I'm going to get is a Hightail Falls Comet. I could have done this star earlier, but again, due to routing convenience, it's just better to do it now. And this is basically Hightail Falls 1, but with a timer. And unlike Sky Station Comet, you have way too much time to do this mission. There's also going to be some holes in the ground and meteors falling, which for the most part aren't an issue. And the ending of the star is going to be slightly different. Because I don't need the Comet Medal since this is the Comet. So I don't need to go out of my way to get that. So if you weren't here for Hightail Falls 1, I'm basically going to be trying to maximize the effect I get from this Dash Pepper. One thing I have to be careful of is that if I'm traveling up a vertical wall and I bonk on something head-on, I will fall all the way down. And that's actually the risk with going up the top half here and getting this Dash Pepper. Especially when you have to do that tight maneuver, it's super easy to bonk there. So instead of doing that weird infinite flutter you saw me do in Hightail Falls 1, I'm actually going to be taking the launch star this time. And this is faster if you're not getting the Comet Medal. So this jump might look weird to you at first. I'll explain what's going on after I get it. Might take me a couple tries though. Never mind, it's free. So there's an interesting variable in the Galaxy games that we refer to as tilt. So basically, depending on a planet's gravity field and how it can make Mario lean farther back or farther forward. If he's leaning farther back, his jumps will go higher. So because that wall is super, super tilted, jumping up the very edge of it will cause Yoshi to go super high up, which is how that skip works. Okay. So, there's not too much RNG in this run, which is a good thing, but this star contains all of the RNG, pretty much. This star is basically just 100% luck. Because I have to kill 30 crabbers on that planet where Romo Dylan was, but the crabbers can basically just do whatever they want. So, it's just kind of a matter of getting lucky and hoping you can get good combos with Rock Mario here. Also, there's one interesting tech with Rock Mario that the game never tells you about and makes the star so much easier. If you press A and Z while you're rolling with Rock Mario, you will actually jump out of it early, and I'm going to be using that a lot in the star to cancel rolls. So my goal here is to kind of hope that these crabbers group up until I get to about 24 or 25 of them, and then I'll start focusing on sort of the individual ones. And the ones I have to look out for the most are the blue crabbers because their movement is extremely erratic. Right, though these last few are sort of spread out here, so this might be somewhat slow. Right, that actually wasn't too bad. I think I have to get this last one. Get it right when the star spawns, which is nice. That was actually pretty good. So I've actually had to finish that star with 1 second remaining on the timer, which is a massive Monka S. But yeah, if you're going... The problem with that star is if you're going up against a good segment in your PV, you are pretty much guaranteed to lose time on that star. It is super annoying. It really just all comes down to making good decisions and working with what you get. And this is the second of the 2 Rosalina 50 Starbit letters that was routed into the run. And the last star in this backtracking session is going to be Fiery Flotilla Comet, which is a timed challenge against our good old friend Gobblegut. And I'm going to be going for basically the exact same stuff I went for in Fiery Flotilla 1. So either this will go exactly like what you saw the first time, or it's going to go horribly. And there's really no in-between. So if you missed the first Gobblegut fight, I'm going to be attacking Gobblegut's bellyache bulges while he's in the air. And I basically want nothing to go wrong with this strat. Let's see how this goes. This first phase is generally the easier one for me. Yeah, on the second phase, I'm trying to get him to come closer to the planet, so it's easier for me to hit the bulges. And this turnaround is really awkward. It's really easy to get hit by Gobblegut there if your positioning isn't good. But 2 for 2 perfect Gobbleguts. Again, that boss, I'm making that boss look easy. It takes so much time to get good at. And there we go. So that does it for this backtracking session, and I'm not going to be getting any more stars for Worlds 1 and 2. So we can finally go back to making progress in World 4. Oh, I don't know where I grabbed 2 star bits from. So, Sweet Mystery and Flexville's Comets have spawned by now, because I got Pleasant Link's Comet earlier, so now I'm going to go ahead and make my way back here to grab these 2, before I can actually continue getting new stars in World 4. So these next 2 are, again, Purple Coin Comets. This first star is deceptively difficult, because I don't have to Infinite Flutter in this level, but Yoshi walks really, really fast. So optimally, I want to stay walking as much as possible, because he actually loses time if he jumps. But this makes getting all the purple coins without slowing down and without missing any really, really hard. Yes. And also, whenever I jump, I'm going to be double tapping A so that I do a small flutter so that Yoshi doesn't stay in the air for as long. This level takes a lot of focus, and it's really hard to get down. I already missed one. Alright, I might be fast enough here to make a really optimal block cycle here. Okay, no, I'm barely slow. If you go fast, you can make it before that block goes too far to the right and get that first purple coin without having to wait for it to go back to the left. But it's super, super tight. It saves like 4 seconds if you can get it, though. But other than that, that wasn't horrible. I only missed 1 purple coin and had, like, maybe a couple sloppy sections here and there. So that star is prone to a number of small mistakes. This next star, it is very easy for mistakes to snowball. So Flexville Comet has 100 purple coins in that room where the silver stars were in Flexville 2. And it's very cycle-based, and with the route I'm going to be going for here, the cycles I have to make are extremely tight. I'm also going to be taking advantage of the fact that when Mario drills, his hitbox is absurdly large, so he can collect large quantities of purple coins by just drilling in place, and I'm going to be using that several times in this star. The first half of this star is really, really tight, so hopefully I don't mess anything up. Here's an example of the hitboxes. Okay. So I'm past most of the hard parts now. So, provided I don't do anything stupid, the rest of this should be pretty smooth sailing. It's super easy to accidentally miss a cycle and then try to go fast to back it up, and then you miss a purple coin in a room and you have to backtrack for it, and it wastes a lot of time. Again, it is super easy for mistakes to snowball in the star. That wasn't too bad. There we go. So that was basically a perfect execution of that star. And we're almost done with comets. We just got one more to do, and then we'll be done with them for a little while. So the last Comet I'm going to be getting in this segment of the run is going to be the Chompworks Comet. And this is basically the last planet of Chompworks 1, but with Cosmic Clones, which basically just means it's another auto-scroller. But it's fast enough to be in the route, so it's worth it. This is actually a star with a frame-perfect IL time of 51.20 seconds, so you could tie the world record here if you wanted to grind it out. It's not really RTA feasible, but I'll probably get within like a second of it if I don't screw anything up. And really the only noteworthy thing about this star is you can make the next Chomp appear sooner if you break that Chomp at around the same time the Cosmic Clones appear. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to this level. I'm actually going to use this time while I'm talking here, while I'm waiting, to talk about something that's about to happen in the world map. So, before I go to the next galaxy, I'm actually going to unlock the path that unlocks a Gravity Gauntlet, and I don't need to do this now, but what this is going to do is spawn both the path to Gravity Gauntlet and the path coming from Starshine Beach to Gravity Gauntlet. Which means once I complete Starshine Beach 1, there's not going to be a cutscene for that path spawning. There's not going to be an additional cutscene for that path spawning. And that's going to save about 5 seconds. And so that's actually the reason why I inserted that World 2 backtrack into the middle of World 4, is so I could have enough stars to do this time save. Because you need 40 stars in order to unlock the barrier to Gravity Gauntlet. Yeah, 51.96, that's like 0.76 off the frame perfect time. So before I go to the next galaxy, Starshine Beach, I'm going to unlock this barrier, and as you're going to see, it's going to draw both paths at the same time, so now there's only going to be one cutscene for these two paths instead of two separate ones. Starshine Beach is one of the few open-world galaxies in this game where everything just sort of takes place on one gigantic planet, and that's really good for this first star because it opens up a lot of routing possibilities. And so, Starshine Beach 1 is a really, really cool level if everything goes well. And also we get Yoshi in this level who doesn't dissolve when he touches water in this game, unlike Mario Sunshine. This level is basically in a huge homage to Mario Sunshine, if you can't tell. So I'm going to get on Yoshi here. I stunned that Crabber by long jumping on it, and now I'm going to eat that Crabber and Infinite Flutter up here. And I'm going to use this Crabber to break open this glass to get the first Silver Star. And I'm going to Infinite Flutter from here directly to the next Silver Star. And the perspective for this Infinite Flutter is not the greatest, so it can sometimes be really hard to tell where you are in relation to the tower, but that was perfect. So now I'm going to have the Dash Pepper here, and the Dash Pepper actually allows you to run on water. Even really deep water like this. Nice, I got the cool ending. So once again, if you dismount off of Dash Yoshi while you're going up a really steep slope, you can gain a lot of height and distance. So that's like what you saw at the end of Hytale Falls 1, only this time I just used it to get the last Silver Star. And this Comet Medal is a little out of the way. You have to dedicate about 10 seconds to get this Comet Medal, but it will net me one of the fastest Comet Stars in the game, so it is definitely worth getting. And again, I'm just going to make my way to this star by Infinite Fluttering, because it's fast. That was a pretty good Starshine Beach 1, all things considered. And there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in that level, so having it go that well is really satisfying. So again, here's what I was talking about with the whole cutscene shenanigans. So normally there would be a path cutscene that spawns the path from Starshine Beach 1 to Gravity Gauntlet, but because I already unlocked that path, that cutscene's not going to play. So I just saved 5 seconds. So now I'm going to do Starshine Beach 2, and this star normally requires going all about the level in order to get to the tower with clouds in your inventory in order to climb up the tower. but we can actually make use of our good friends from Piranha 5, the Chucksters. I'm going to use one of them to launch me onto the highest cloud of the tower. That by itself isn't enough to get onto the tower, but if you remember the tech from Honey Bloom 1, you can jump off of a cloud when you don't have Cloud Mario, and so that's going to be the extra boost I need to get onto the tower. You only have a few frames to time the jump, but it's actually super lenient. So I just got a long jump over to the tower. I'm going to turn the camera a couple times in order to manipulate the cloud cycles. And then we should just go to right here. I gotta spin once Mario starts falling backwards, and then I can just jump off that cloud and make it onto the tower. And that skip's pretty much doing everything in that level. Alright. So, last star of World 4 is going to be Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet, which is the grand star of this level, of this world. And Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet is a pretty unique stage in this game because there's actually 2 different lava boost / gravity exploits you can use to skip a huge chunk of this level, and you're actually going to be seeing me go for both of them in this run. So the first one is named Behind the Castle, and you can probably guess why it's named that. Basically, there's a 2D castle with lava rendered behind it, and you can actually lava boost behind it. And if you do it in just the right way, you can enter the last 2D zone of the level. This is a much harder skip than it looks, and there is a skip that's faster than this, but I have to do this in Gravity Gauntlet 1. And because I need the Comet Medal, which is right next to where you do Behind the Castle. And this is where the slopes aren't slippery when they're too far off the camera will come into play, because I'm going to try to get on top of a pillar here that's all sloped, but because it's far enough from the camera, the slopes aren't going to affect Mario. And you'll see me use that here. There we go. Alright, Yapchi. So I got the skip, but that is much harder than it looks because you have to be a very specific distance away from the castle, or else you're going to die. There we go. That section's really, really awkward. So you have to have a very specific setup in order for that skip to actually work, and it loses a lot of time to miss it, so I'm really happy I got that first try. And from here on out, now I just gotta do the next Bowser fight. So, this Bowser fight is quite a bit different than the last one I did. For 2 reasons, really, well, actually for 3 reasons. One, there's now going to be shockwaves coming off of Bowser's meteors as well as his punches, which means I have more to dodge. 2, Bowser only drops 2 meteors in this fight instead of the usual 3, which means Bowser could actually punch out both meteors and cause me a cycle if his positioning is bad. So I'm going to avoid that whenever I can. And 3 is actually only relevant for this first hit after I do this very hard movement to dodge Bowser's punches. Okay, so Bowser's going to drop the 2 meteors here, and he's going to punch. I'm actually going to wait for him to start up another punch attack, and then hit him with the meteor. And this is actually going to make Bowser think he already did the punch. So you might have heard the sound effect for Bowser charging up a punch, but he's not going to punch because he thinks he already did. And I don't have to do that for any more hits, and it does net a few seconds of time save. So the rest of this fight's going to play out similarly to the one from Lavalier, except again I have to be careful to not have Bowser in a bad position, and I also have to dodge everything. There's one thing I want to bring up here though. So one of the most annoying parts about these fights, okay, that hit probably wouldn't have worked in Galaxy Generator because Bowser's shell can actually deflect the meteors, And we're not sure if this is actually true or not, but it seems like his hitbox grows, the shell's hitbox grows with each fight. So that hit probably would have bounced off the shell in a galaxy generator, and that costs you a cycle, basically. So luckily this was Gravity Gauntlet and not Galaxy Generator, otherwise that probably would have been an issue. Okay, and so this is going to be the World 4 Grand Star, and with that, we are essentially 2/3 of the way through this run. Just got a little bit over an hour to go. Now, what really kind of sucks about this route, again, so normally originally we would grab this Grand Star, and then we would do most of that World 2 and 1 backtracking session you saw earlier in World 4, before going to World 5. But now I can just go straight into World 5, which means the World 5 segment is going to go by a lot faster. Because I'm actually going to be only getting 10 stars in the World 5 segment, including the Grand Star. Alright. So this first star in World 5, Space Storm 1, this star is actually unskippable. There's literally no other way to get around doing it. It's fortunately a pretty fast level, but there's no other star you can do to progress in the game at this point, which is kind of hilarious. It's one of 10 stars that's like that, including the Grand Stars. Alright. Space Storm 1 doesn't have a whole lot going for it. This level is mostly about movement. But this cylinder planet right here with all the elevators moving on it is full of cycles, and it's a very, very hard planet to optimize. And also we are introduced to Pole Stars. Alright, so at the start of this planet, I'm going to go for a rather finicky long jump that if I get it properly will save about 5 seconds in platform cycles. Alright. That long jump, that single long jump right there, when I was upgrading my strats to learn that took me about an hour to get consistent at. Which goes to show how very finicky that planet can be. Alright. So here I just have to lure this bomb over here to break some glass. Thankfully, this is the only time you do this in the level. And I can just long jump straight to the launch star instead of actually walking all the way over there. So now we're coming up on this huge pole star section, and this is a really, really awkward section to do fast. Because in order to do pole stars optimally, you kind of have to release yourself before you reach their center. And there's a lot of obstacles in the way, making this really difficult. Yeah, kind of slow down there. Right. Taking damage there is fine because you get suspended in midair for a little bit, and you have a lot of time to grab another pole star. But now that we have Space Storm 1, I have access to basically all of World 5. Yeah. 2 of the galaxies I'm not going to visit, though, because they're not worth going to. But before I move on, I am going to collect one more star from Space Storm. Space Storm 2 actually pays homage to a buoy base galaxy from Galaxy 1. It even has the buoy base music. Unfortunately, if you're a big fan of the music, which I know a lot of people are, myself included, you're not going to get to hear too much of it. This level, if done properly, goes by very, very quickly. This is actually properly the second fastest level in the run. So this level is all about hitting those blue switches to slow down time, because everything in this level is moving really fast. I'm not going to hit any of them, because I don't need to. And here I'm going to skip the entire first section of this level by just jumping onto this wall here. And just long jumping up here. I'm going to jump onto the swamp, use some upwards momentum to get up here. Up here. And then use a triple jump to skip the Topman fight and go directly into the star. So that was basically perfect. That's another level that's satisfying to pull off perfectly, but really hard to do so. And like I said, you're not going to get to hear much of that song. Yeah, 28 seconds in-game time. That's actually, again, the second fastest level in the run, normally. Okay, so now we can move on into the bulk of World 5. Okay, so Shiverburn Galaxy is sort of a remake of Freeze Flame Galaxy from the first game. Kind of has that lava and ice theme to it. And the first star I'm going to do here is the Secret Star. And if you remember Freezie Flake's secret, and you missed your opportunity to guess my score there, or you didn't get it correct, here's your second chance. So the rules are basically the same. You can only guess anywhere between 600 and 900. And you can only guess in multiples of 10. And remember, if no one gets it exactly right, whoever is closest, furthest, or behind, before or behind, wins, in my book. And I'm going to skip to C here just by using some cloud jumps. So this minigame is basically the same, except now he needs you to get 100 more points, so much harder. It's actually a lot harder for casual players, especially if you don't have the patterns down. But you can actually get the... This even has the same patterns as the original one, and it can be rotated in the same ways. And fun fact, I actually got the same rotation twice in a row. And none of the, there's only one other chimp challenge in the run, but I'm not going to be doing any of the other, like, timed chimp challenges because those simply take too long. Those ones, instead of a timer of 40 seconds, it's like 2 minutes. 770. So again, whoever guessed closest or exactly right on that would win. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do Shiverburn 1. This is a somewhat long level, but I would actually consider this another really satisfying star to pull off. There's a lot of really cool tricks you get to do in Shiverburn 1. At the start here, there is a gravity exploit where I can go straight from the beginning of the first planet to the end of the last planet because they're like right next to each other. And I'm going to be using Cloud Mario to do this. The setup I'm using for this is somewhat tricky, but with practice it's not too hard. I'm going to use this moving platform essentially as my launch pad for my long jumps. And I have to make these pods at very specific times and long jump in the right way. Should be good. Okay, we're good. So I have to detour a little bit in front of the launch star here to get this Comet medal. And I'm actually going to take damage on purpose because I want to lose the cloud suit so that I don't have that floaty effect for this section. And here I'm rotating the camera again just to get some of these icicles off screen. Because right here I'm going to skip killing these octopus guys by just lava boosting past them. So now I'm going to be fighting Prince Picante, and I'm actually going to be doing not the optimal strategy for this boss, but this is a very safe strategy that doesn't rely on RNG. So I'm going to intentionally miss this first coconut, and then let him, and I'm going to hit the second one back to him late. Because what I'm doing is I'm setting him up so that he's never on that side of the battlefield during the second or third hits, because otherwise he'll do this upwards firing attack that you can use for a faster strat, but it's really random and I'm not very good at it, and this strat barely loses any time and is basically 100% consistent if you know what you're doing. Yeah. Pretty simple fight. Alright. So, Worlds 5 and 6 were also rerouted when this new route came out, and again, it's just the order in which I'm doing stuff is slightly switched around. And it's really, really hard to explain, so what I'm actually going to do, instead of just trying to explain it now, is I'm going to wait until I get the next star, and then show you what I mean. Also, this is the last of the 50 star-bit Mailtoad letters in the run. So after this, I'll have enough star bits for the rest of the game. Okay, so first I'm going to go to Boo Moon, and I'm actually going to do Boo Moon 1 first. So this is kind of the other spoopy level of the game. And there's not a whole lot to the first, like, half of Boo Moon, but Boo Moon 1 actually contains another really cool gravity skip that allows me to skip about half of these snake block auto-scrollers and go straight to the launch star. And it's got some pretty wonky physics behind it, and I think you'll really enjoy it if I can pull it off. Yes! So on this planet, movement here is kind of awkward because of the way this planet is sort of curved. So again, I'm just doing those short little jumps there to speed myself up a little bit. Right there, I actually got a frame-perfect camera cancel. That's an instance where you have to press up on the D-pad on the first frame to get a camera cancel. Otherwise, you can't enter first-person mode. So, coming up, there's going to be a wall that forms that actually switches the direction of gravity, and I'm going to use that to my advantage here. So I'm going to get the wall to activate, but then I'm actually going to turn around and head back to this snake block. And once the gravity switches, I can jump onto the side of the snake block. And I can just long jump off, spin, and then... Ugh! My spin timing was bad. The spin timing there is kind of hard. You don't really have any good cue to work off of. I think I spun a little bit... I don't actually don't know if it was too early. I think it might have been too early. We'll try that again, though. That time it was too late. Man, this skip actually normally isn't that bad. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with it. I'll try it until I get it, though. Third time's the charm. Yeah, those are two really costly deaths. Alright, third time's the charm. There we go, that should be good. There we go. Alright. So again, that just skips about half that snake block auto-scroller section. And then the rest of the star is pretty self-explanatory. You just get those star chips, and now you gotta get some silver stars. And I can one-cycle this. Yeah, that skip is really, really awkward, so it's not too surprising to me that I failed it twice, because again, your controls are a little bit awkward on the side of the spin block. It's not very intuitive, and the spin timing is really weird. But at least I got to show it off. So here's what's going to happen and why this order is optimal. So, actually, no, it's not after this star, my bad. I believe it's actually after Upside Dizzy? I don't actually remember. I think it's actually after Boom and Secret, I think. Basically, it's really hard to explain, but if you get a text box for a Comet medal as well as a Galaxy Complete text box, and a Comet spawns after collecting that same star, it saves time, and so this route optimizes that as much as possible. It's really, really complicated, but it just know that this route is faster. Okay, so here's Upside Dizzy. This is the sequel level to Right Side Down from World 1. and it's very, very confusing, and this first star is extremely difficult. It's basically all about cycles. Okay, that actually doesn't lose too much time. Okay, never mind. Alright. That cost me about a cycle there, and I can just long jump into that gravity zone to go super high up. Oh wow, that went really high. Alright, I'm gonna try a Goomba bounce here to skip into this pipe. There we go. And here the gravity switches on a cycle, so you basically need to have a consistent path through here. Otherwise, you're just gonna stumble through here and lose like 30 seconds. Alright. That was almost perfect. I only lost like a couple seconds at the end there, but again, that star is extremely hard. Upside Dizzy 1 takes a lot of practice to get down because there's just so many tiny things you can screw up that lose so much time. And you saw it at the beginning there, like I very slightly screwed up the backflip at the start and I lost a full cycle. Oh, I pressed A a little bit early there. When you have less than like 20 coins or so, you want to actually wait for it to count all the way down before canceling the text box, but I pressed A a little bit too early. So here I'm re-entering for the secret star. And once again, I'm just gonna skip the cutscenes. This is another box spreading minigame. I'm gonna go for a somewhat tricky Goomba get bounce to get into this pipe here. Sure. Right. Didn't quite get into the pipe, but close enough. So the time limit for this box spreading minigame is slightly tighter, but I would argue that this is easier to do optimally because you don't have to have as many weird positions to throw the fireballs at. One thing you do have to keep in mind, though, is that the fireballs don't actually come out of Mario's center. They come out of his right hand. So I want to be slightly to the left of where I actually want to aim. Otherwise, I'll actually miss my shot by a little bit. And a 9 on the clock is optimal, so that was really good. And that's all for Upside Dizzy. Alright, so now this is the last time I'm going to be brought down to the engine room, and just like every other time, it is useless, so I'm just going to jump on out of here once Lava finishes blabbing to me. Last time I gotta do this movement. So I'm gonna go back to Boo Moon now, and we're gonna do Boo Moon Secret, which is what we used to actually do first. And this is another instance where I have to make sure I select Boo Moon 1 and not Boo Moon 2. Okay. So Boo Moon Secret is not very interesting, admittedly. Because it's kind of just riding the snake blocks all the way across. Unlike Boo Moon 1, the skip I did there is not applicable, because I need to actually take the snake blocks all the way. So, I'm mostly just going to be kind of waiting around here. Yeah, I didn't get the frame perfect camera cancel there either. This long jump is always scarier than it needs to be because you just barely make it. Although if you land right next to the platform and die, you can spin and grab the checkpoint as you're sinking in, so you don't lose that much time. So I have to actually take the snake blocks all the way around. And there's a Comet medal on the way here, so I might as well grab it. So the secret star I need to get to is actually on some snake blocks past this launch star. And I can skip waiting on most of this by just long jumping to the star. That's actually a skip I would recommend casual players do, because doing that star the intended way sucks. That snake block moves really, really fast. And now, we just have 1 star left before going on to the boss level of World 5, and it's actually a pretty easy star. So next up is Shiverburn Comet, which is the 3rd of 4 Romp Comets in the game, and this run. And this is killing 30 Octumba enemies on the platform where Prince Bacante was. With Rainbow Mario, and believe it or not, it's actually not faster to skate to kill these things. For one, Rainbow Mario's top speed is, I believe, slightly faster, but also it's easier to turn while you're running. And that makes killing these Octumbas quickly a lot simpler. So how this is going to work out is, I'm going to skate into this Rainbow Star to build up momentum, and then I'm just going to jump out of it and just start running. And if I do this right, I should be able to do this all on one Rainbow Star. Yeah, very nice breather star. Okay. So, the boss level of World 5 is Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker, and if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed that I haven't really done any motion control-based levels in this run. I haven't done any of the Fluzzard level or the ball rolling levels. That's not going to change, but Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker has cannon aiming, which is pointer-based. And this wouldn't be that big of a problem if the 2 cannon shots I had to make in this level had extremely small targets. And the main issue with this is, funnily enough, you have to aim with the Wii remote, but then you have to press A in order to shoot. Your hand can twitch as you're reaching to press the A button and cause you to move and miss your shot. Or when you're nervous because you're on good pace, 2 hours and 20 minutes into a 3-hour run, your hand starts to shake, and that's really bad. So that's especially prominent for this first cannon shot, where I have a really tiny target to hit. If I miss it, I die, and it's about a 35-second time loss. So, bless the hand RNG for this one. Oh, here we go. That might be too high. Actually, I think I'm fine. Yeah. So I just aimed that first shot right at that Boomerang Bro's face, and then that allows me to insta-kill it, and then I have a quick setup to get that other one. This second cannon shot's a little bit more lenient. But then afterwards I have to do a really tough jump. I'm gonna aim over here, and then I'm gonna head over to the Comet Medal, and you're actually supposed to use Cloud Mario to get to the end of this section, but that is merely a suggestion. That jump's way cooler. It only saves like 1 or 2 seconds, but it's cool. And it's not that hard. It's tricky to learn, but once you get it consistent and you have a good setup for it, it's not too bad. Alright. So here is Bowser Jr.'s Boomsday Machine. This boss fight either goes really well for you or really well for Bowser Jr. Because either it goes by really quickly or you lose like 30 seconds. Although these first 2 hits aren't really that bad. So for the second hit, he's going to be invincible for the first, like, few seconds of this, so I have to wait for that timer to expire. I was too close to Bowser Jr. there, so... But this third hit is where it really matters. I have to get to the top of Bowser Jr. before he gets too close to me, or I'm losing a buttload of time. Also, okay, that went well, first of all. And if you're wondering why Bowser Jr. is not in 3D World or Odyssey, that is where he canonically dies. So, yeah, press F in the chat for Bowser Jr. Alright. And that's the end of the World 5 segment. So, at this point, we've only got one world left, World 6. Unfortunately, this is where any percent runs of this game go to die. World 6 contains a lot of really difficult stars, and almost any conceivable mistake you make from this point onwards is a massive time loss. It really sucks when you're this far into a 3-hour run and your run dies here, because it can happen almost anywhere. But yeah, we're sort of coming up on the end. There's about 40 minutes left, give or take. And I really hope you all been enjoying this run lately. It's been going not too bad. Just had a couple of flip flops in mid game, but overall I'd say I'm pretty happy with how this is going. So first off, in World 6, we're going to do Melty Monster, because we don't really have a choice. And I'm actually going to be getting all 3 stars from here in one go. This course happens to work out to where I don't have to do any backtracking. So Melty Monster 1 is interesting, because I mentioned earlier that objects don't normally move if they're not on camera. That doesn't actually apply to the tornadoes in this section for some reason. So they're on global cycles from the moment I enter the level here, so I have to have really good movement in this full star section in order to make the optimal cycle. That wasn't too fast, but I could probably still make it. And then this next section is just kind of a giant lava pool. With a bunch of mini platforming skips. I'm gonna grab this life mushroom here and then just kind of lava boost here to skip past these poles. Uh-oh. Wow, that was actually nice. I actually skipped out on a hit of damage there. And I still made the tornado cycle. I wasn't intending to do that. Normally I take 4 damage for that set of lava boosts, but I only took 3. Yeah, making that tornado cycle means I only have to take 2 of the tornadoes. I would have had to take that. I would have had to take that second one. Oh, and here is the final section where it's really annoying because every single one of these planets has its own field of gravity. But that first little long jump at the start there allows me to skip the first few of them. Oh boy, that's fine. I have to wait for this magma anyways. And for some reason, hitting this crystal on the left side is easier than hitting it on the right. Oh boy, this is not good. That's really sketchy because I didn't hit the checkpoint, so I would have gone all the way back to that second section, but we live in. Like I said, that ending section is really, really awkward because there's just so many ways you can just get tossed around, and that crystal also sometimes just doesn't want to work. Nothing major happened, which is okay. So the other 2 stars, even though the galaxy is named Melty Monster Galaxy, don't even involve lava. They involve Rock Mario. And they're both pretty stupid if you're going... They're pretty easy if you do simple strats, but they're stupid if you go for the fast strats. And obviously I'm going to go for the fast strats. So Melty Monster 2 is actually a really good level to form star bits from for Bank Toad. What most Galaxy 2 runners will do is they'll have a save file preloaded onto their SD card, and then they'll just refresh the save file every single time they want to do an attempt. But if you can't do that, this is a really good level to form star bits from. There's also not too much to this level until the very end, where one of the most precise skips in the run is present. So, in the final platform of Melty Monster 2, there is a little zigzag section with fences that you're supposed to reflect yourself off of in order to make the turns, but you can actually roll across the tiny gaps in the middle if your angle and position is really precise and your timing is good. This only saves like 3 seconds and loses about 45 if you miss it. And I am going to try it, but I'll only try it once, just for marathon safety. So hopefully I get this, because this is a pretty cool strat. And again, after every jump, I'm spinning here. Okay, I'm actually not going to attempt it because my positioning was bad there. So again, I would have skipped just having to take the fences there, but my positioning didn't look good, so I just wanted to ensure that I wouldn't die. But taking the fences can be a risk too, because sometimes the fences just kind of fling you off in a random direction for no reason, and you still die. But thankfully that didn't happen. Right. And the last star, Melty Monster Secret, also has some really annoying tech to it. So, in Boulder Bowl 1, you saw me do a skip that revolved around canceling ramps with a spin jump so that Mario could jump on the ramps instead of actually taking them. I'm going to be trying to abuse that a lot on this star. And you'll see how it saves time here in a little bit. So normally, when you take these ramps, you stop rolling when you reach the next platform. But by jumping at the edge of the ramp instead of actually taking the ramp, which can only be done by deactivating it, things get a little bit interesting. And this is a level I'm going to need to focus on, so... I'll go for it again. So what you saw on that third ramp is what I'm trying to do, where I'm basically just jumping at the edge of the ramp and then I keep rolling. I'll try it again. I'm trying to do this on 3 separate ramps. And for this minigame, there's 56 pins in total, and I only need to hit 50 of them, so my margin of error is not very big. I jumped a little bit early on that first ramp. That should make it. There we go. Alright, there we go. Yeah, the problem with those jumps is that you're effectively doing them blind. So it's understandable that I messed up one of them. But at least I still got to show it off. It saves about 2.5 seconds per ramp, and you again risk dying. I only went for it on 3 ramps there. You can go for it on way more than that. Okay. So now I'm finally done with Melty Monster. So, once again, World 6 also had a reroute in terms of the order of stars done. So instead of taking the top path like we used to, I'm actually going to go down the bottom path. And this is once again so that I can overlap text boxes and cutscenes on the world map in order to save some time here and there. I would take the bottom path anyways because Flash Black is just and Slimy Spring are better galaxies than Battle Belt. So they're worth going out of the way to do. So Flash Black has a pretty cool gimmick to it, where the light, you only get a brief glimpse of the mansion every few seconds or so, but if you played this level enough times like I have, then you have the mansion layout memorized, so that's not a problem for you. And this is another star that doesn't have too much going for it. Because they were basically just using Blimp Yoshi to climb up the first part of this mansion. Alright, there's another jump cancel. Oh, that was a weirdly... Sometimes Yoshi starts flutters in really weird ways. The mechanics are somewhat strange at times. They're usually pretty consistent, but they can screw up on you. There's a pretty cool strat here to get this Comet medal, assuming I didn't just screw myself. Okay. That went pretty well. And this last section here just has some silver stars to collect. Nothing too crazy here. Making a lot of literally blind jumps. And then you have this yellow platform, which for some reason is on a different cycle almost every single time I get here, and I have no idea how to manipulate it. I was on a pretty good cycle that time. Alright. And now we're getting to a bit of a resident sleeper level. So, the only reason this next star is in the route is because it's the only option that's better than Battle Belt. But this next star is basically just 2 minutes of swimming underwater with the shell. It's kind of inconvenient that this route is now the way it is, because this star used to be all done a little bit later, so that it would be sort of a more calm before the storm star. But after this star, there's still a ton of gameplay left, so it's somewhat inconvenient and it doesn't serve the same purpose, but it's still kind of relaxing and it's a nice little break. Yeah, this star is pretty freaking boring. So there's a slope boost at the start here, but then after that, I know I haven't been really responding to chat this run, so if anybody has any questions relating to the game, I'd be more than happy to answer them while waiting for the star to be over. Because I'm not going to have anything to say. Actually, now I do have a little something to say. I know nobody's really asked me anything, so how long have I been speedrunning SMG2? I've been speedrunning this game since early 2015, but I have no way to prove anything before mid-2017. So, take whichever answer you think is better. Here I'm going to try some coinless strats. You can dodge those coins by barely touching the edges of these speed rings. It's really precise, because the coin hitboxes are a lot bigger than they seem. And if you bonk on a wall head-on while moving at this booster speed, you actually lose the shell, which is really bad. Alright. Got a potentially cool strat coming up here. Need a pretty decent lineup for this to work out. Alright. There's another shell, like, right next to you if you mess that up, so it's not like you lose a whole lot of time by missing that, but it looks really cool. Also, I might be able to try something here. Nice, I got it. So, I was kind of squeezed underneath Captain Toad's hitbox there, so when I did that backflip, it pushed me outwards in such a way that it just launched me right into that star. You need to have pretty decent positioning for that to work out. Now I'm actually going to head back and take the top path, and don't worry, I'm not forgetting that comet. I will be getting it later. So Clockwork Ruins, I need to get a star from here if I want to have access to the next galaxy, but I don't really have many options here. Clockwork Ruins 1 takes about 2.5 minutes, and no. But Clockwork Ruins Secret involves collecting 30 coins in this first section in order to defeat a hungry Luma, which does take some time, but after that the star is basically finished. The problem with this star, though, is actually the fact that these gears are on cycles, and you really, really do not want to die here, because then the cycles are really bad, and they're not fast. you kind of have to be careful here. Luckily, there's a pretty consistent route for getting through here. Right. I was going to try Strat there where I do a triple jump through that coin and then make it over here. And then I can get an extra coin from this section, but I'm actually going to skip out on that Strat because I got messed up by that platform. And I looked in first person there to make the cycles of the next platform advance a little bit. Right. So there's a 10 coin item box here, which is really, really helpful for this route. Now I just need to get one more coin from this platform. And there we go. Now I just gotta feed them to the hungry Luma. And at this point, the level is basically done because there's a nice little skip on this next planet where I can just do a triple jump wall kick to get up to where the star platform is. Again, this is another skip that's probably better to do in casual play, although maybe not as aggressively as I'm doing it. There we go. That was a pretty good level. It's really easy for something horribly wrong to happen in that level, so having it go well is always a relief. But now that that's done with, it's time for us to go on to a galaxy that I'm sure all of you GSA fans are going to recognize. And right here is another instance of overlapping cutscenes. You saw that there was a path unlock cutscene for Throwback, and then there is another Comet spawn for Beat Block. And again, this route tries to optimize those as much as possible, because that does actually save time over having those cutscenes be separate. But now, we get to move on to Throwback Galaxy, which I'm sure all of you GSA fans recognize, because it is basically a remake of Womp's Fortress from Super Mario 64. Unfortunately, the movement in here is not nearly as flashy as it is in SM64, but it should still be a nice little homage here. And the Comet Medal is actually where the shoot into the wild blue star was, so I'm going to make my way over there first. This is actually going to be the last Comet Medal I'm getting in the run, and I should have 32 Comet Medals, because I had 31 after Slimy Spring. I'm going to take a little detour over here. We're going to do a triple jump, spin, and ledge hop, or wall jump to get up here. And then using some fancy wall jumping, we can get up here. Alright, so you can actually skip killing this Womp, but it's really stupid and only saves like 5 seconds or something, and if you fail it, you get crushed and die. So there's a way to have that Womp clip you through the floor in a way that skips having to open that door and that you end up in this boss arena, but it's stupidly precise and there's not really a good setup for it. So I don't bother with it. So now here's the real King Womp. And unlike SM64, you can't clutch through him, so you have to fight this boss more or less as intended. You have to be careful of those little wimp guys, because they can sometimes knock you around. I'm also jumping whenever King Womp is jumping, because he kind of stuns you when he jumps. So you kind of have to be careful of that. You should be good here. That last guy's really far away from me. And he even has the same text as he does in SM64, which is a nice reference. Alright. So that was a pretty cool star to show off, but also Throwback 1 gives access to Throwback 2 and Throwback Comet, which are two really fast stars, so it's worth getting. And this is going to be the last time Lava bothers me in this run. This is the last time I'm brought down to the bottom of the starship. He's going to want to bother me one more time after this run, but let's just say that's not going to happen. Alright, and this next star, Throwback 2, is actually going to be the last non-Comet star I'm going to be collecting in the run until Galaxy Generator. And it's actually sort of an homage to SM64 DS, except not really. It's a Silver Stars mission. And They could have placed the Silver Stars in like red coin locations, but they just kind of threw them in random positions around the level. But it's nice because Throwback Galaxy is kind of an open world level, and also you get Cloud Mario, so you can do some really cool movement. So it's a pretty short and sweet level here that we get to do. So I have to make sure I hold A when I bounce off that Baba Buddy because I get a little bit more height that way. So here I have to be careful when I get this first Silver Star because I don't want to make this Cloud too early. Otherwise I won't be low enough to grab that Silver Star and I'd have to wait for that Cloud to expire. Right here I'm kind of veering off to the right with that long jump because, like I said before, you gain a lot more momentum if you're long jumping over an abyss as Cloud Mario. Alright, gotta do one more set of Cloud boosted long jumps here to get up here. I really have to make sure I don't fall down here. Alright. And I'm gonna ground pound directly into the star here, and hopefully I'll actually ground pound right into the star. I grabbed some star bits at the last second. What's nice about the Galaxy games is that ground pounds send you to the ground really quickly, so they're a nice way to travel downwards in a really short amount of time. Okay, so now we're going to begin our final backtracking session of the run to get some comets. I'm going to be getting 2 in World 4, 2 in World 3, and 2 in World 6, and that'll round out the 70 stars I need. This first comet is very much a late game run ender. Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet Comet has a couple... So in Gravity Gauntlet 1 I did behind the castle. Here I have 2 potential options to do a different gravity exploit that's actually faster, but also a lot more finicky. And it's very easy for runs to just die to the star 2 hours and 40 minutes in, which really, really sucks. I'm gonna attempt the harder variant first. That's a few seconds faster, or not the harder variant, but the slightly faster variant. It's very finicky. You have to do really precisely timed inputs in the air. Alright, so I'll give this version a couple tries. Hopefully it goes well. Alright, that should be good. Okay, perfect. First try. So the basic premise of that skip is that when you hit a lava wall as opposed to a lava floor, you actually get boosted, and then you hit the lava again, you get a huge boost in horizontal speed. And so that basically allows me to do that gravity exploit, which is slightly faster than behind the castle. But it's also a lot more finicky, because you have to do... In order for that gravity exploit to work properly, you have to do really precisely timed direction changes in midair, with pretty much no visual cues, and if anything goes wrong, you are going to die. But I'm really happy I got that first try. Alright. So now we got a couple of breather stars, thankfully. Starting off with Starshine Beach Comet. So this is the comet that I went 10 seconds out of my way to get a comet medal for, and you'll see why here in a little bit. This is not necessarily a purple coin collectathon, because the purple coins are just kind of placed in rows and you get Dash Yoshi, and there's way more than 100 purple coins, there's actually 140, meaning this is actually one of the easiest stars in the run. You have a very wide margin of error here. That being said, you do have, if you want to do it optimally, you do have to make very, very tiny adjustments on the control stick so you don't miss too many of them, which can be really tricky to do. So let's see what number I have around here. So if I have enough at around this section, I can actually kind of go off to the right here and skip having to collect some of those purple coins. And that worked out nicely. Okay, so next up is going to be a couple of Comet Stars from World 3. So first one I'm going to do in World 3 is a Haunty Halls Comet. This is basically the last section of Haunty Halls 2, but with Cosmic Clones. It's still just a bunch of long jumps, and the Cosmic Clones don't really make it that much more difficult. You just gotta be careful. It is very easy to get ahead of yourself in the star and get distracted, and then you accidentally fall off something and die. So you do... This isn't necessarily a freebie star, but it's easier than other late game stars, I'll give it that. I have to make sure I do this in a very specific way so that these matter mounts are on the right cycles. That's it for that star again. Not really much to say about that one. So this next star, B Block Comet, is another pretty tricky star. But what's really funny about B Block Comet is that this star outright lies to you. Because the Comet says that the blocks are transitioning in double time, but if you remember from B Block 1, I said they switched every 8 beats of the song. Here they switch every 2 beats. So the blocks actually switch 4 times as fast. And also the area where the Silver Stars is as expanded. Now luckily this means missing cycles is not much of a time loss, but you still want to go fast. But it's also super, super easy to get thrown off and start panicking. Unfortunately, we don't have to worry about that for most of this level. I actually got the jump cancel even though I didn't really need to. Because, believe it or not, we actually get Yoshi here for some reason. So, I can just infinite fire to skip about half this. Alright, I didn't get the checkpoint, which is not exactly good. You gotta be somewhat careful here so that you don't accidentally fall through these. Alright, I'm gonna try to shake to get onto this last platform here. Alright, we're good. That's a really scary star, because again, it's super easy to start panicking, because you get thrown off your rhythm. Now at this point, all we have left are 2 stars in World 6. So yeah, we're just about approaching the end of this run. We're in the home stretch by this point. Alright, so the first comment I'm going to get in World 6, if you loved Throwback 2, you are going to love this star because it is basically the exact same thing. There just happens to be a timer at the bottom of the screen. That being said, there is actually one minor difference in this level, and that's that some cycles near the beginning are going to be slightly different, because the level intro cutscenes show different parts of the level, but other than that, this level is basically the exact same as Throwback 2. At least it's this and not like a 100 coin purple coin Comet, because that would have been pretty slow. So this first cycle to get past this bump here is a little bit tighter, but once you're past that, it's all smooth sailing from there. You gotta be careful to not fall in the water here, because you actually lose the Cloud Mario if you touch water for some reason. Okay, that final jump was a little close, but I still made it. Alright. And at this point, we only have 1 star left. It's kind of surprising. And this last star may seem kind of anticlimactic, but I actually kind of like this star. It's really satisfying when it goes well. So this last star is going to be Flash Black's Comet, and this is the 4th Romp Comet in the game. It involves killing 30 Octumba enemies. There's not really much of a special gimmick to here, but you do have 3 different ways you can kill them for most of the stage. You can either jump on them, you can spin attack them, or you can shoot them with the Starbit and then kick them. And for the most part, it's better to try to shoot as many of them with Starbits as possible so that you keep your momentum going. But this involves the skill of multitasking, because I have to be able to pick up Starbits, keep track of the counter, aim them, and control Mario at the same time. My pointer's being weird. Okay, there we go. This is not very good. I got really thrown off there. My pointer was being really weird. Seems to be better now. Alright, try that again. That's not too bad of a death. Oh! I don't know what happened there. Okay, I seriously don't know why my pointer's being so weird. Yeah, this happens sometimes. It's really rare though. You need to have a pretty good setup in order for your sensor bar to work properly, but I don't normally die twice on this star. So that's kind of annoying. Come on. There we go. Alright, and now I can get on Yoshi here, and Yoshi can actually eat multiple enemies at a time, which is pretty helpful. Alright, thankfully we don't have to worry about any more pointer shenanigans for the rest of the run. That was really annoying. I lost like over a minute there. Alright, whatever though. Now we are off to Purple Idiot Skip. The hardest skip in the entire run. So, Lobo's gonna wanna talk to me one more time before going to Galaxy Generator. The space right before Galaxy Generator normally has this like 30-second long cutscene, but you can actually skip over it by doing this very, very hard trick called Purple Idiot Skip, where you just click on the Galaxy Generator space with the Wii remote instead of moving there with the nunchuck. I just saved 35 seconds and you probably didn't even realize it. Now it's time for Bowser's Galaxy Generator. This is a very, very good final level. It's got great music, a lot of really hard tricks, a lot of really cool movement, and a very intense fight to end it all off. This is a very good ending to a speedrun, even if it is very stressful. Okay. So, here comes another lava wall boost. This one's significantly easier than the one in a Gravity Gauntlet Comet. And that just allows me to skip those camera rows. Please make it. Okay. Need this drill here. So here I'm actually going to intentionally lose the spin drill by jumping in the lava here, because I want to be able to long jump so I can have fast movement, and also I can skip part of the section. This cylinder planet can look really stylish if I pull the movement off properly, but it can also easily backfire on me if something goes wrong. And it's also pretty cycle dependent. This last part is the hard part. The ball bells can actually break your clouds, which is really annoying. I have a spare cloud here, so I can actually do a cloud boost at the start of this next section. And coming up is probably the coolest looking infinite flutter in the run. It basically skips the entire rest of the level. It's not that... It's a pretty daunting infinite flutter. I wouldn't say it's the hardest one, though. You do have to do this in 2 separate flutters, though, because of the 10-second cooldown. So this first one is just to get to the top of the castle here. Here we go. Should land on the top shelf here. There we go. So I got the optimal version of that flutter first try. That flutter can be particularly scary because if you're too high when doing that flutter, you can actually enter the gravity zone of the previous planet and just spiral around it infinitely, which soft locks the level, so you have to leave it, and that wastes about 2 minutes. But thankfully that didn't happen. You have to manage your height pretty well for that flutter. Now it's off to the final Bowser fight, which is a very annoying fight 3 hours into the run. Because Bowser does go back to dropping 3 meteors instead of 2 in this fight, but the difference is that he is very, very quick to pull out his punches. So you do not have much time to react in this fight. And also, like I alluded to in Grounding, his shell hitbox seems to be a lot bigger, so it's much more likely that his shell will deflect the meteors. And again, missing hits in this fight is about 20 seconds, which is not common to get here on good pace. It's not uncommon to get here on good pace, and then you miss, like, a couple hits, and then your run dies. It's really upsetting. Right. And just like in Gravity Hollow, I'm also going to go for another punch cancel here. I'm going to wait this out. Now we're on to the 3rd and 4th hits, where Bowser is very fast to pull out his punches. Another thing that can happen on this 3rd hit is that if I take too long to hit Bowser, I could accidentally hit him while he's summoning the meteors and then cancel that attack by accident. Which means that when Bowser goes to punch, there aren't any meteors for me to grab hunt into him. But luckily that 3rd hit was really good. And that would have also caused a cycle. But I don't have to worry about that here, because this is the 4th hit and I get taken into a cutscene. Should be good positioning. Alright, there we go. So that's it! That's the run. Bowser is now officially dead. And all that's left to do is sit through these cutscenes and make my way to that final Grand Star. So time is going to be coming up pretty soon, but I'm in control of the timer, so it's okay. There it is. There's that big shining Grand Star. That's gonna allow us to get that cake we were promised. All I gotta do is touch it, right? Debated. Yeah, you can't grab that star. It doesn't have a hitbox. This fight is unskippable. And this fight is actually pathetically easy. It has like the most epic music in the game, but you only get to hear it for like 20 seconds. And Bowser's one attack actually drops a coin, so it's basically impossible to die in this fight. You just press A and Z 4 times and you win, basically. Alright, there we go. Alright, now time is actually going to be coming up. It's going to be when I touch the Grand Star. So this is looking to be about a mid 304. So my PB in this category is a 3:00:31, and the world record, which is 3rd place. The world record is a 2:58:39 by Nemi. Competition for this game has been really, really sick lately, and I've been so happy to see a lot of runners at all different skill levels just fighting to improve their PBs. We have a tournament going on as of right now. We're currently we're almost halfway through the bracket stage, and it's coming to an end pretty soon here, so there's no better time to check out the Galaxy games than now. Galaxy 2 has been popping off so hard lately, and I'm so excited to see where this game goes in the future. So we're coming up on time. And time. 3:04:40 is not the greatest run I've ever had, considering I had 6 deaths, including those 2 on Flash Black Comet, but I'd say overall it was a pretty good showing, and I hope you enjoyed it. So if you want to learn either of the Galaxy games, join the Discord. We have a Discord server for both Galaxy games. I have a playlist of tutorials on my YouTube channel. We have a beginner example run by Claire, aka Mutants Abyss, and we're working on a document guide, and we're a pretty decent community, I'd say. It's not, the Galaxy games aren't super great speed games, and the length kind of wears them down, but really happy I got to show this off on GSA. I'm really happy I got this chance, and I hope